Hello and welcome back everyone, we Weeb Online, and today I'm gonna continue the story What If Naruto Used Full Kurama Part 2. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
So we just have to track down some old geezers? Naruto asked when Kakashi explained their new mission. Tsunade and Jiraiya were students of the third, and are two of the legendary Sannin. They're more than just some old geezers, Kakashi said. Yeah, Tsunade-sama is a legendary medic nin, Sakura piped in, shaking her finger at Naruto. She's contributed more to the advancement of medicine than anyone else. Ever. Naruto gave a considering look. Does she have a nickname? He asked. Well, she's called the Slug Tamer, Kakashi offered, and the legendary sucker. Sakura squawked. Sasuke looked at him in disbelief, and Naruto nodded thoughtfully. And she has, you know, Naruto put his hands about a foot in front of his chest. Big ones? Kakashi nodded vigorously. Biggest I've ever seen, he said. Sakura glared at them then HMPHED as she turned away. And Jiraiya, he's a whoremonger, isn't he? Naruto asked matter-of-factly. Yes, Kakashi blinked, a bit disconcerted that Naruto knew such unfavorable information about two of the jewels in Konoha's crown. In addition to being one of the world's foremost experts in fuinjutsu, he does enjoy the company of a certain type of women. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that. Kaka-sensei, when he goes into a brothel, they close it down for him. Call a spade, Naruto snorted. So where are we looking for them? The latest information the Hokage had showed Jiraiya to be somewhere in Lightning Country, so we can't go after him yet. But Tsunade was last spotted in Tea Country. It was 2 months ago, but it should give us a lead as to where to go next. Nay, Kaka-sensei, I might know a guy who knows a guy who Tsunade might be in debt to, and he might know more about where she is, Naruto said, careful to look out over the bridge instead of at any of his team. They, however, were all looking at him in interest. Oh really? Kakashi asked, intrigued, and how might you know him? You know, just, Naruto sighed and rubbed his head. He's just a guy a lot of people know. He's just around, you know? So should I go talk to him? Sure. In fact, we'll all go, Kakashi said. No, Naruto whipped his head back around to look at Kakashi, which meant he missed it when Sasuke narrowed his eyes at him. That would be, it's not a place, he wouldn't talk to you. Why wouldn't he? Kakashi asked curiously. I'm a Junin. That's exactly why he wouldn't, Naruto said seriously. Kakashi frowned. Naruto, what kind of person is this? The kind of person who can lend a lot of money to Tsunade without having to worry about getting it back, and then be able to keep pretty good tabs on her, Naruto said, licking his lips nervously. The kind that doesn't like shinobi. And Kakashi understood, Yakuza. You're as much a shinobi as Kaka-sensei, Sakura said. Why would he talk to you and not the rest of us? Naruto gave a sardonic smile even as Sasuke frowned. Because I wasn't always as much a shinobi as Kakashi-sensei or the rest of you, he said. So even if I am a shinobi now, he'll talk to me. Alright, Kakashi agreed. You go talk to him today and report back tomorrow morning. You're all dismissed. We'll meet at the South Gate tomorrow morning at 6. I want to get an early start. Naruto was well aware that Kakashi was following him. He was sure that, if Kakashi had been really trying, Naruto would never have had a clue. Over the few months he'd had Kakashi as a sensei, he'd found out exactly why he was one of Konoha's elite Junin. But either Kakashi didn't much care whether Naruto caught on or he was underestimating Naruto's perceptiveness. Most likely it was a little bit of both, though Naruto had also had the benefit of knowing Kakashi would almost certainly be following him even before he'd caught him at it. Because over his time as Kakashi's genin, Naruto had also learned that his sensei didn't give in easily, and when he did, it was because he had something else planned. So instead of heading straight to the man he could ask his question, he instead meandered towards the center of town, near where the Hokage Tower was, then veered off on a side street that led to a busy market area. He ducked into a few different stores, knowing Kakashi wouldn't follow him inside where he was sure to be spotted. After he set up a pattern of going into a store, spending a while inside, then coming back out, he went into one that had a back door which led to an alley with an entrance to the underground. He slipped through without anyone taking a second glance, and knew he would have at least 15 minutes before Kakashi would think to look for him, which was 13 minutes more than he really needed to disappear. The jumpsuit and his hite-aid were quickly sealed away and exchanged for an old set of brown pants and his t-shirt. Then he slunk down through the false grate hidden behind a dumpster and was in the underground. It wasn't the sewer system, Naruto knew at least that, though he didn't know much more about the system of tunnels that spanned most of Konoha. But he thought it likely that it came close to overlapping either the sewers or an underground river since the place was always dripping. He was always careful to walk neither too close to the center of the tunnels where the water was deep enough in places to cover your ankles nor too close to the walls where you might run into one of the underground's residents. That was never fun. Out of self-defense, Naruto had to completely ignore the sounds coming from various dark corners, moans and groans and whimpers and pleas for help. He had to ignore it, because if he looked, if he paid too much attention, he would see himself on every face and hear himself in every voice and would lose his old, best forgotten memories. So he kept his eyes straight ahead as he made way through the tunnels of the underground, taking a few turns here and there until he found the exit he was looking for. He popped back up to the street behind one of Konoha's nicest brothels, which was across the street from Konoha's only casino. A few of the girls he knew from odd jobs he'd taken here and there when he was younger were in the back planting flowers and called out a hello to him and waved. He waved back, then ducked into an alley to change again, this time into nice dark gray pants and a black long-sleeved shirt. Running his fingers through his hair in an attempt to tame it, Naruto headed towards the building situated behind the casino. He knocked out a pattern on the back door that announced he was a friendly. The door opened and he was allowed inside. "Tell Jin that Naruto is here to see him," Naruto told the two big, hulking men who formed the welcoming committee. The one on the left nodded and headed back to deliver the message as the second Hulk stayed to keep an eye on him. He might have known the code, but that didn't mean he was trusted. It took only a few more minutes before he was ushered into the back. He hadn't been brought to Jin's office, he knew as he eyed the bare room with plain concrete floors and plastered walls. Another security measure, since he was an outsider now, that he wouldn't be allowed anywhere near something that actually had potentially damaging records. "Naruto," Jin greeted, motioning for him to sit at the other metal folding chair at the opposite end of the scarred wooden table. The only furniture in the entire room. Naruto thought the naked bulb hanging from the ceiling made the whole thing just a touch over the top. "It's been a long time. What business brings you back to my doorstep? You're not looking to run numbers for me again, are you?" Naruto shook his head. "I'm out of that business. I'm here about Senju Tsunade," Naruto told him. "I understand she owes you quite a bit of money?" Jin's eyes narrowed. "You always did know too much for your own good," Jin grumbled. "How much is she into you for again?" Naruto asked. Jin mentioned a figure and Naruto let out a whistle, tilting back in his chair. "Was she at least any good?" Naruto asked, alluding to the rumor that Jin had only lent her the money because she was sleeping with him. Jin snarled. I can't tell if that's a hell yes or a hell no, you know," Naruto mused. "What is any of this to you?" "Well, we may be able to help each other out," Naruto said, dropping the chair back onto all four of its legs and leaning forward. "You and I both know she's never going to make good on her debt to you. And you can't even, persuade her to pay, like you would anyone else who tried to welch." "How does you knowing this help me?" Jin asked. "Because I know that you keep sharp tabs on her, just like you would anyone else who was in debt to you so much," Naruto said. "And I happen to need to know where she is. You give me that information, and I'll purchase her debt from you for, let's say, 10% of its face value." Jin raised an eyebrow and began to negotiate, because the boy was right. Tsunade would never pay him back, and recouping even a portion of the money was better than nothing. Sakura valiantly tried to strangle the scream that was creeping up her throat and begging to be let out. Her parents, as much as they had supported her in the academy, were now finding her life as a ninja incomprehensible. Being civilians, Sakura had the intellectual understanding that they couldn't really relate or understand. Sakura found she didn't care. And irrational though it was, they were her parents, so she wanted them to be able to automatically understand everything. Automatically and immediately. "But you just got back," her mother was saying. "Surely it wouldn't matter if you took some time to come with us to Epona. How can they expect you to leave again with only a day's notice?" Sakura considered this briefly, wondering if they could be there and back in 2 days. Would Kakashi-sensei be able to delay their departure for a day? It would please her parents, and she had to admit that it was nice to be home in bed with her mother cooking for her after so many nights in a sleeping bag with field rations. "We haven't made the trip since you began the academy," her father said, "because we wanted you to be able to follow your dream. But our business has suffered since we've had to outsource our buying trips. It would only be a month or 2. I'm certain there's nothing so pressing you can't go. It's not like we're at war, after all." "A month or 2? Sakura asked incredulously. "What could you possibly need to buy in Epona that would take that long?" "Don't be silly, we only need a week or 2 in Epona to make our purchases," her mother said. "But we have to get there and back, don't we? And it's a 2-week journey under good traveling conditions." 2 weeks? Sakura asked in disbelief. She could get there in a day. Sakura felt the gulf between her and her parents, between the life of a shinobi and the life of a civilian, very acutely just then. "Mama, Papa, I'm Ekunoichi," she tried to explain. "I have duties and—" "You have duties to your parents," her father said firmly, "and you will be coming with us." He stood up from the table and began to walk away, as though his declaration somehow put an end to it all. I can't, don't you understand? Sakura said plaintively. I already have another mission and... You can, and you will, her father ordered. End of discussion. Aren't you tired of playing at being a ninja yet? Her mother asked, voice tired and distraught. Playing? Sakura asked in a whisper, staggered at the realization of what her parents thought she was doing. We aren't getting any younger, Sakura-chan, her mother continued. It's long past time we started teaching you how to run the shop, so you and your husband can be prepared to take it over. Husband? Sakura's eyes went wide. Horatsu-san's son is only a few years older than you, her father said. They've made a few discreet inquiries. You don't mean Horatsu Barumo? Sakura asked in horror. He was 8 years older than her, and had teased her relentlessly when she was a child. She supposed he was relatively attractive, except for an overly large nose, but she'd never felt anything more for him than annoyance at best and fear at worst. Of course, her mother said curiously. Horatsu-san has a good import business. It would be a good match for our families. But not for me. Sakura yelled, the scream finally bubbling out of her. I'm a kunoichi, mama. I'm not going to be a housewife, and especially not to Horatsu Barumo. We haven't made any agreements yet, but the preliminary discussions have been fruitful, her father said. If you're completely opposed to Barumo-san, I suppose we can see what other families might have sons. You aren't listening, Sakura said. I'm not going to be a shopkeeper, and you have no right to enter into any marriage negotiations without my consent. Don't you understand that I'm a ninja of Konoha? You're my daughter, I have every right. I'm the Hokage's ninja first, Sakura insisted. She saw the hand. She'd been training in taijutsu for years now, so how couldn't she? But the idea that her father would strike her was so unfathomable that she didn't comprehend what was happening until he'd struck her cheek. She raised a hand to where he'd slapped her and looked to him with wide eyes. If you were the Hokage's ninja before you were my daughter, then leave my house, her father said, turning his back to her. Still in shock, Sakura was only half aware that the sound she heard was crying, and that it came from her mother. Let him provide for you. When you are finished playing at being a kunoichi and are ready to accept your real duties and your marriage to Barumo-san, you may return with an apology and a properly humble manner about you. But Papa, until you are my daughter, I am not your father, leave us. Tears in her eyes, Sakura fled. When Kakashi arrived at their meeting place on the bridge, it was to find Sakura sobbing into Naruto's shoulder. Naruto had somehow managed to wedge himself onto the bridge's rail so that he could settle Sakura in his lap, but given the angle, Kakashi had to assume he was using chakra to hang on. Sasuke sat next to them, looking very awkward and self-conscious, but he had one arm around Naruto's waist and the other around Sakura's shoulders, offering what comfort he could. The boys noticed his presence, and he cocked his head to the side to ask what was wrong. They shook their heads that they didn't know. Kakashi sighed and hefted himself up on the railing on Naruto's other side. Nay, Sakura, he said, patting her back. What's made you so sad? The garbled wailing that came out was mostly lost into Naruto's shirt. Then she sniffled and turned her head so it was tucked under Naruto's chin and she could speak unimpeded. Mama and Papa, she stuttered, still trying to calm her tears. And Barumo. They want me married of all things. And taking 2 weeks to get to Apana. Apparently they must crawl the whole way. But I don't want to be a shopkeeper, I want to be a kunoichi. The three males all blinked in confusion, then looked to each other to see if any of the others understood what she'd meant. Your parents want you to get married on the way to Apana where you're going to be a shopkeeper in 2 weeks? Sasuke tried. I am a kunoichi, not a shopkeeper, Sakura insisted. I don't care what they say. If they didn't want me to be a ninja before a daughter, they should never have sent me to the academy. Then the whole story came spilling out. Kakashi didn't bother sighing when he heard what had happened. He'd expected it, though not quite so soon. Civilian families inevitably pushed their children into the academy, thinking only of the prestige of having a ninja in the family. But civilian families were not at all equipped to deal with the life of a ninja. It rarely ended well, and almost never when the child was an only child, as Sakura was. Sakura, Kakashi said, I don't have anything to say that could make you feel better. Really, I don't think there's anything that could. So instead, I'll give you a few truths to think on. You're a good kunoichi, and you'll be an even better one with time. You would be a great loss to the shinobi corps. But civilian families really can't handle shinobi lifestyles. So I want to warn you that a time may come that you have to make a choice between your family and being a kunoichi. But no matter what your choice, I will support you and help you however I can. Yeah, me too, Sakura-chan, Naruto piped up. Agreed, Sasuke said. Good, Kakashi said. Now wipe your face so you can see properly and we'll head out. We still have our mission. Sakura nodded sharply and took a spare bandana from her pouch. She didn't miss that he'd told her to do it so that her vision wasn't impaired instead of to make her look better, as her mother would have. and she found she preferred Kakashi's reason. Naruto, were you able to meet with your contact? Kakashi asked. He nodded. She's on her way from Coral to Saijin City, Naruto said. There's a poker tournament there she wants to play in. She'll be there in 2 days. Kakashi blinked. That's very specific information, Kakashi said. Naruto shrugged, knowing Jin had a very hefty investment in her. He thought of Tsunade's promissory note sealed safely away in his pouch, and suddenly realized that it was now him who had a very hefty investment in her. Well then, Kakashi said when he decided Naruto wasn't going to offer up any additional information, let's go. It was a 2-day journey for them to get to Saijin City. Saijin was a small city as far as that went, but one whose entire economy was based on vice. There were dozens of casinos, at least twice that number of brothels, and more bars, it was rumored, than could be found in the rest of Fire Country combined. Kakashi only wished he were there on personal leave instead of a mission. Sighing, he turned to his kids. Do you know which casino is hosting the poker tournament? Kakashi asked Naruto. The same one that does every year. Naruto shrugged. The Hajimedo Hotel and Casino. We'll have to find out where that is. You don't know? Naruto asked, surprised. It's the best place in town. Geez, haven't you ever been here before? No, are you saying you have? Kakashi asked. Naruto just shrugged. Come on, I'll show you where the place is. Kakashi eyed the casino Naruto pointed out with dismay. It was one of the taller buildings he'd seen in Saijin, and even from the outside he could tell they went for opulence. They also went for security, as it was clear no expense was spared there with discrete monitors covering every point of ingress he could see, from windows to roof. Then there were the more mundane physical guards posted around the actual entrances. He wondered if they had hired shinobi to help them set it up or whether they had someone on staff who was just that talented. He'd have to check the mission logs when he got back, to make sure nobody in Fire Country was going to an outside hidden village to hire shinobi. Sasuke, Sakura, circle the building. I want you to analyze the security and report back with any possible weak spots we could exploit. They nodded and were off. Naruto watched him and waited. We aren't really going to try to break in, are we? Naruto asked, shifting his weight uncomfortably. No, but it's a good exercise, Kakashi said. Good, Naruto said with relief. Because these aren't the sort of people even a shinobi should piss off. At least, not without the Hokage behind him first. And you seem to know quite a bit about them, Kakashi replied. How is that again? Oh, you know, Naruto said with a shrug. Where I grew up, it's kind of hard not to pick up on that kind of thing. Naruto, you grew up in Konoha, Kakashi said. And you think that somehow means the entire village is perfectly safe and crime-free? Naruto asked incredulously. Get real, Kakashi-sensei. The village isn't perfect, and there are any number of places shinobi don't bother patrolling. The look in Naruto's eyes suddenly made the boy appear much older, and Kakashi wondered again what his life had been before being put on Team 7. Sasuke and Sakura came back then and told him what they'd found on the security. Basically, Sasuke summed it up. The only way anyone's getting into that casino right now is if they're one of the players. Naruto cocked his head to the side and thought. I could probably play, he said. I know a guy who could get me a seat in the tournament. Sasuke's eyes cut straight to him, silently questioning how. But the amount you have to pay to be a player in the tournament is exorbitant, Sakura said with a sigh. We found out the minimum was at least equivalent to an A-ranked mission. And the expense account for this mission doesn't run nearly that high, Kakashi said. Naruto shrugged. There's a guy who's helping run it that owes me a favor, Naruto said. Kakashi shook his head, half in amusement, half in exasperation. That, Kakashi said, must be some favor, given the minimum buy-in. Yeah, Naruto said with a shrug, but then, he knows it's not like I'd ever lose at cards. Naruto had left his team to find accommodations and find out whether or not Tsunade had made it to Saijin City yet while he headed off on his own to call in that favor. He threaded his way through the back alleys like a native, heading towards a small tea house very few outsiders even knew existed. Morning, Nichan, he said to the girl who answered the door. Is Hariko Ne available? Of course, honorable sir, she said, bowing him into the establishment and leading him to a table. One moment please. He sat at the low table, polished to a high glossy gleam. The place was small, and had only 4 tables, with orchids delicately placed into ikebana arrangements spread out through the room. As he waited, a small water feature caught his eye, holding his attention as the hollowed-out length of bamboo filled with water, tipped and emptied, then shot back upright, causing a soft cracking sound. Then it started filling all over again. When Hariko entered, she looked surprised to see him. The expression was quickly smoothed over as she joined him at the table and motioned for the tea to be brought. Naruto-kun, is that you? She asked. I thought you were getting out of the business to be a shinobi? I did. Naruto shrugged. Or I tried, anyway. Seems that life doesn't let you make clean cuts, though. I'm looking for Ichi. My husband's at the Hajimedo Hotel, getting everything ready for the tournament, she answered. Is it anything I can handle without him? He's been rather besieged lately. I'm calling in a mark he owes me, Naruto answered. I need a seat in the tournament, and I need him to front me the stake. Hariko just stared. I will, of course, pay back the stake Ryu for Ryu with my winnings, Naruto explained. I see, Hariko said, recovering. I believe this will be acceptable to my husband. Come to the Hajimedo casino tomorrow and he shall have a seat held for you. Naruto nodded. Thank you, Hariko. Nay, Naruto said. Also, could you pass along that I may have another piece of business to discuss with him at the end of the tournament? It should be profitable venture for him, getting rid of some bad loans. Kakashi had been skeptical that Naruto had actually gotten what he'd set out for. He had, of course, followed the boy, and all he'd seen was him being served tea at a tea house, then go around the town making some clothing purchases. But the next morning, he and Sasuke and Sakura had watched Naruto change into the rich-looking civilian clothes and confidently stride into the Hajimedo casino, where he was greeted like an old friend and ushered quickly inside. Do you ever get the feeling that Naruto hides more than he tells us? Sasuke asked, eyes narrowed in thought and a frown forming on his face. Yes. Sakura and Kakashi immediately agreed with him. Then a dark-haired woman with a slight build exited the casino and caught Kakashi's eye. Shizune, he recognized. Watch the entrance, he ordered his two remaining students. I'll be back. Tsunade didn't know what to make of the strange luck she was having. She wasn't doing horribly, but she wasn't doing exceptionally well either. Instead, she was somewhere in the middle, progressing through the tournament by the skin of her teeth. This was distressing to her for a number of reasons, not the least of which was that she used her luck as a sort of barometer of things to come. The better luck she had, the more likely something bad was coming her way, and vice versa. So this odd middle ground made her unsure of what to expect. Then she sat down at the table with her next matchup, not bothering to even look up as she anteed and waited for her opponent to do the same. Senju Tsunade, isn't it? Her opponent asked as the cards were dealt. A pleasure to meet you. She looked up from the table to eye the twerp, and had to stop herself from sucking in a breath. The kid looked almost exactly like Minato had when he was still a little brat trailing around after Jiraiya. She shoved her chair back. If you leave the table before we're through, you forfeit, you know, the kid said mildly. Did Sarutobi send you? She asked, eyes narrowed, but he only smiled and placed his bet. Ma'am? The dealer eventually had to prompt her, do you plan to forfeit? No, she said, looking at her cards and putting some chips up to start the betting. So did the old man send you here after me? Tsunade asked again. Konoha must be very different now than it was when you were there, if you believe it can fund an expense account that could cover entry into this tournament, he said. You are from Konoha, though, Tsunade said. He nodded. Uzumaki Naruto, he introduced himself, sweeping the chips from the pot into his pile. She frowned, both at the name and the loss. Uzumaki? She asked, surprised. Tsunade had been sure he was Minato's kid. I believe we have a mutual acquaintance, Naruto said, studying her intently as the dealer started off another hand. I've recently made some acquisitions from him you may be interested in. Do you recall a man named Jin from your time in Konoha? Tsunade froze and stared at the boy, wondering how in the world a kid so young could get mixed up with the Yakuza. I may know such a man, she said noncommittally, but I know many men. Why might any business between the two of you interest me? The dealer motioned for her to either match the kid's bet or fold. She shoved the chips out on the table. Ah, I suppose it might not, Naruto said, shrugging. I simply thought you might be interested in knowing who held your debt. Tsunade dropped her cards. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Lucky they fell face down, Naruto said. Face up and you would have folded. So you're not a ninja, Tsunade said, growling at him. Just one of his. Oh, no, I'm definitely a shinobi, Naruto corrected her, watching the dealer as he dealt the turn. Then why, I have a teammate who's interested in medical ninjutsu, Naruto answered. I'm not going back to Konoha, Tsunade warned. Then she cursed as Naruto won again. He left a few chips on the table as ante and she tossed a few out for her own. Luckily you won't have to meet with her, Naruto said. You're here with your team? She asked. Then Sarutobi did send you? Of course, Naruto agreed. I have a message he wanted delivered, but that doesn't mean I don't have other business with you. I'm not taking on another apprentice, she warned. I'm not asking you to, Naruto said. I'm asking you to meet with her. Why should I? She asked. What's in it for me? He gave her a look halfway between amusement and pity. Tsunade narrowed her eyes as the dealer laid out the turn and she folded, having absolutely nothing. You don't seem to understand your situation here, Naruto said. Oh, what situation is that? You've been very careful over the years to only borrow money from, shall we say, less than reputable sources, Naruto said. Given your status and theirs, there was no recourse for them when you skipped out on them. She narrowed her eyes. I am a shinobi of Konoha, Naruto continued. So the rules you're used to playing by, they don't apply anymore. And if you're smart, you'll want to keep me happy. Which means indulging me by talking to my teammate about being a medical nin. Tsunade's mind raced ahead to 100 different possibilities and outcomes, then nodded. I'll talk to the girl, she said, but no way in hell am I coming back to Konoha. And I'm not taking whatever message you have from the old man. Well, we'll see, I suppose, Naruto said with a shrug as they were dealt another hand. Why don't we make a little side wager? In addition to this. He gestured to the chips, not even looking at the cards he was dealt. What kind of wager? She asked, hiding the fact that she was very pleased with her cards. A pair of 9s in the hole was a better start than she'd had so far. I win, you take the message, Naruto said, laying it on the table along with a good number of chips. You win, I don't try to give you the message again. And you cancel my debt, she said, matching his chips and raising them. He laughed. Are you kidding me? He said. No way is 1C rank mission worth canceling your debt. Give me a little credit here. The dealer burned a card and dealt the flop, laying out the 3 community cards face up on the table. Tsunade refrained from smiling when she saw it had another 9. Which meant at least 3 of a kind. And the brat still hadn't looked at his cards. She raised the betting. Well, she mused. What would it take for you to put that on the table? You'd have to offer something of equal value, he said, matching her chips and motioning the dealer to lay out the turn. An ace. I'd consider anteing the debt I purchased from Jin in exchange for, say, you anteing your coming back to Konoha and establishing and running a medical school, full-time. Tsunade's eyes widened. Then she looked from her cards to Naruto, who still hadn't even looked at his cards yet, and back again. She blew out a breath. There was no way she could lose. 3 of a kind and 2 more cards to be dealt. It was a sure thing. The dealer burned a card then set out the river. It was another ace. She smiled. Full house. Done, Tsunade said, pushing all of her chips over the green felt covering the table into the bet. All in. All in, Naruto agreed, pushing his own chips in. Full house, Tsunade said, showing the cards in her hand. Aces over 9s. She reached out to take the chips, but Naruto's hand stopped her. Then he turned over his cards, one by one. When she saw the first ace, she began to sweat. With the 2 on the table, that meant 3 of a kind. Which, she reminded herself, wasn't enough to beat a full house. Then he turned over his second card, and she stared in disbelief. Another ace. 4 of a kind, Uzumaki-san wins, the dealer declared, pushing the chips over to Naruto. He smiled and handed Tsunade the message tube from the third. I'll expect you back in Konoha by the end of the week, he said. She began cursing, but Naruto just waved her out. I'm not going back, you little twerp, she snarled. I don't care what our wager was, I refuse. Tsunade, Naruto said, face looking like it was carved out of stone. I told you, I don't play by the rules you're used to, so stop acting like a spoiled child. Jin and the others you've dealt with may have had to take what you're willing to give, but I don't. Like a pathetic little genin like you could do anything, she said. Ah, but as a genin, I have the right to bring my grievances to the Hokage, Naruto countered. He wouldn't do anything, Tsunade said, not to me. Perhaps not for me, Naruto allowed. But if you were to ignore me, I would have cause to appeal to the Fire Lord. And if I were to then sell your dead to the Fire Lord. He trailed off, and Tsunade's eyes went wide as she stared at him. The Fire Lord had been trying to get her to come to his court for years to be his healer. And if he held her dead, he could make the Hokage send out his shinobi to force her to his court, where she would have to serve until her debt was paid off. You see how it would be better for everyone if you just do as you've agreed? You didn't even look at your cards, she protested. There's no way you should have won. Perhaps. But then, I only lose at cards when I want to, Naruto said with a shrug. Now, you'll be in Konoha by the end of the week? She scowled again but nodded and took the scroll, reading through it. The old man wanted her to go back to Konoha anyway, so at least it would kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And besides, the brat had never stipulated how long she needed to stay. A few weeks, maybe a month or 2, tops, and she'd be out of there. Kakashi had all the faith in the world that Naruto would do exactly as he'd said he would, and find and deliver the scroll to Tsunade. But he hadn't survived so long as a shinobi without always having a plan B and a plan C and usually even a plan F. So when Kakashi saw the girl he remembered as Tsunade's apprentice, he followed her, being none too careful about not being seen. And when she finally spotted him and used a shunshin to appear behind him, Kakashi let her think she'd gotten the drop on him. What do you want? She demanded, touching a kunai to his neck. Ma, Is that any way to greet a fellow Konoha-nin? He asked cordially. What do you want? She asked again. He felt the kunai pressing closer to his throat. That isn't very nice, Shizune-san, he said with a pout. I'm not here to give you any trouble. But the kunai only pressed closer, and he decided he'd played the affable idiot long enough. Within the blink of an eye, Shizune was disarmed and pressed against him chest to chest, wrists behind her back and held tightly together in one of his hands as the other wrapped around her waist to keep her from moving. Her eyes widened as she tilted her head back to look up at him. What do you want? She asked again. Just to talk, Kakashi said easily. If I let you go, will you run? Or try to poke at me with sharp objects again? She tried to pull away, but Kakashi only tightened his grip and she winced. Shizune sighed and relented. Alright. Good. Kakashi smiled and took a step back. How about we talk over tea? He pointed to a nearby tea house. She nodded and followed, restraining the urge to stick senbon in him as his back was turned. You're here from the Hokage? She asked after the tea was served. Ah, Kakashi agreed. My name is Hitaki Kakashi, she interrupted. I know who you are, Hitaki-san. Kakashi raised an eyebrow as he fiddled with his teacup. Are we being recalled? Shizune asked. Kakashi couldn't help but hear the faint hope in her voice, and the far more obvious concern. I believe so, Kakashi said, but I wasn't privy to the message before Hokage-sama sealed it. Shizune sighed. Even if it is, I doubt Tsunade-sama will agree to go back, she said. Not even at the order of the Hokage? Kakashi asked, surprised. Hokage-sama is very lenient with Tsunade-sama, Shizune said. He'd have worded it so as to give her the choice. But you want to go back, Kakashi surmised. Why don't you? You can come back with my team even if Tsunade-sama doesn't. I can't. Shizune shook her head. Tsunade-sama is not well, and I couldn't leave her alone. I'm sure you could convince her to go back, even if it was just for a short while. No, she wouldn't take my words to heart, Shizune said. I'm not nearly persuasive or important enough. Oh, I think you don't give yourself enough credit. If I'm any judge, you have more sway than you think. If I have any sway at all, it's only because I never ask her to do a thing she truly doesn't want to. Would you have had any luck in moving the fourth from a path he'd chosen? Kakashi frowned and finished his tea as a server blocked his face. Let's go find my kids, I'm sure they're wreaking havoc by now. Sakura and Sasuke had begun their watch carefully hidden, determined to keep from being found. After a while, though, they began to wonder at the point. And with neither Kakashi nor Naruto nor their target anywhere in sight, they were incredibly bored as well. Want to do the rest of the watch from that tea house? Sasuke finally asked, pointing to one directly across from the entrance they'd been assigned to watch. Oh, Kami-sama, yes. They spent the afternoon grazing on snacks at the tea house until Tsunade stormed out of the casino. Sasuke and Sakura came instantly alert and watchful. This turned out to be not to their benefit, as it drew her attention and she spotted them immediately. She wasn't legendary for nothing, after all. She narrowed her eyes and began to head right to them. Oh, shit, Sasuke muttered. You too, she pointed right at them. You here with that blonde brat? You mean Naruto? Sakura asked. Sasuke kicked her under the table, and she glared back at him. I thought so. Tsunade flopped down next to Sasuke. Kid won all my money off me, so you two are buying me a drink. But, sake. Tsunade yelled the order to the waitress, who was across the room. Sasuke and Sakura looked at each other, then shrugged. So, Tsunade said as she poured herself a saucer of sake, which one of you brats is interested in medical jutsu? Naruto was sitting in the casino's high rollers bank room waiting for his chips to be cashed out when Ichi walked into the room and spotted him. Naruto, Ichi greeted him. Good to see you again. Ichi was Saijin City's equivalent to Konoha's Jin. That is, they dealt with all the money. My wife told me you had business to discuss? Ichi asked after the pleasantries were exchanged. Yeah, Naruto agreed. First off, these are yours. He pushed a relatively small stack of chips over the table towards him. To repay the steak you lent me. Ah, very good, Ichi nodded. You've always been good for it, Naruto. Unlike certain other players I've lent money to. He looked at the huge pile of chips Naruto still had and sighed. Naruto nodded. That leads to our second piece of business. I understand Senju Tsunade owes you quite a bit. Probably 3 or 4 times what she owed Jin, Ichi acknowledged. Ah, so you heard about that? Naruto asked, rubbing the back of his neck. Of course. Ichi nodded. It's a small community. I assume you want to buy it? I'll give you the same rate I gave Jin, Naruto nodded. And you can pass the word I'll give that rate to any of her debtors for as long as I'm buying her debt. So tell me, Tsunade said. What do you know about this Uzumaki brat? You could always ask me yourself, Naruto said as he swung into the seat next to Sakura. I already talked to your girl about medical jutsu, Tsunade told him defensively. And, Naruto raised an eyebrow. She may be acceptable, Tsunade dismissed. Well, you'll have a while to find out, I imagine, Naruto shrugged. What do you mean? Tsunade asked suspiciously. 10, 12 years at least. Don't you think? 12 years? Tsunade sputtered. Sasuke and Sakura just looked on in confusion. I don't think you could truly establish a medical education program in a day less, do you? She narrowed her eyes and sighed. No, I suppose not, she said through clenched teeth. Ah, so you're coming back to Konoha after all? Sakura asked hesitantly. Unfortunately, she grumbled under her breath. Which is great, because I had an interesting conversation with Ichi after you left, Tsunade, Naruto said, waving to the waitress for her to bring them something to eat. Ichi? Tsunade said, dreading what Naruto might say. He had something full of interest for me, Naruto replied. Tsunade slumped. The twerp had bought that debt, too. How much did you win that you could buy off Ichi? Tsunade asked. Naruto shrugged. Enough. Naruto dug into his dango. Sasuke and Sakura just continued to look confused until Kakashi found them. My, what amazing watchers you are, Kakashi said. Hey, we're here, our subject's here, and we're watching her, Sakura defended herself. What more do you want? Kakashi sighed. Shizune looked on in wide-eyed amazement. So, Tsunade slurred, well into her cups. You brot's gonna escort me back to Konoha. If you request it, we can. Tsunade-sama, Kakashi answered, slouching his long frame back against the booth with his arms stretched across the back of it. But our mission isn't over yet. What you mean? She demanded. Y'all got me to come back to that damn village. What else could y'all have to do? Unless, don't tell me. You're after that Jiraiya, too, aren't y'all? She began to laugh as Kakashi nodded. Nay, you don't know where the old man is, do you Bon? Naruto asked. Tsunade, Naruto shortly found, packed an enormous punch even while drunk. Don't call me that, you twerp, she demanded. Naruto, what are you saying? Kakashi asked dramatically. You mean that you don't have some incredibly esoteric tracking device on him? You don't know a guy who knows his secret traveling companion? Naruto rolled his eyes. Ah, come on now, Taiko-chan, you're letting us down here, Kakashi teased. Naruto decided his sensei must have managed more sake than he'd thought. What will we ever do without your guidance, Taiko? Sakura asked, voice high as she batted her eyes at him. Naruto glared at them all and crossed his arms in front of his chest. Shizune watched the whole thing in amusement. Don't pout, Sasuke said, and Naruto hoped the teasing was over. You can't blame us for being surprised, Taiko. Naruto groaned and laid his head on the table. Wait, you need to know where Jiraiya is? Tsunade suddenly asked with a gleam in her eye. Well, lucky for you, I happen to know where he'll be in a few days. And if I have to go back to the village, he sure as hell's coming with me. Since the first seal he saw Naruto draw, Sasuke had known that his stupid teammate had more to offer than most people would ever think to find. Making a seal that could disable a Junin was, of course, a big slap in the face. It made him look for more than the class clown and dead last loser he'd always seen before. But Sasuke thought he knew everything there was to know about Naruto after the bell test. After that, he got hit in the face again. In this case, it was his teammate's strange past and the links that came from it that led him straight to one of Konoha's most famous ninja. He thought they were close enough that they didn't have any big secrets. It looks like he was wrong. But then, he hadn't really asked either. When they stopped for the night and Kakashi-sensei told them to spar, Sasuke was more than ready. Ah, sh*t. You know that you're a mean jerk, Naruto said as he turned his head to the side and spat blood out of his mouth. That was all Sasuke did. He smiled and started another scene that made Naruto run to avoid it. Putting one foot in his torso helped a lot with those efforts. As Naruto flew into a tree with a sharp exhalation of breath, Sasuke thought that it might not have been the way Naruto would have liked it. But Naruto should know not to expect much more in a straight taijutsu match. They were much more evenly matched in a sparring match with fewer rules, where anything could happen. The bruises that were running down the left side of his torso were proof of that. There were rules about the spar, though, so they weren't even matched. He groaned, but then he got up and came back. Sasuke smiled. He was the best at taijutsu. Plus, getting hit in the head sometimes loosens lips better than anything else. Sasuke could wait because he wanted to know what his teammate was hiding and why he was keeping it for so long. He could wait around for Naruto to get there. That didn't mean he couldn't also work off some of his anger at having to wait at the same time, though. Sasuke then realized that he had let his mind wander for a little too long and that Naruto had put him in a bad spot where he had to give up a blow to his ribs to protect his jaw. He was about to fight back when Kakashi called for a spar. Ma, I think that's enough for the night, he stated. We still have a ways to go to get to Haifu in the morning still, nay? They said yes, and then they started their cool-down exercises. Are there any wounds I can work on? Sakura asked excitedly. Heaved a sigh. On the one hand, having a teammate learning medical skills was great because it made it easy for him to use medical jutsu. On the other hand, being a test subject for a new medical nin was a little scary. And ever since she met Tsunade-sama, Sakura had been eager to put everything she had read or learned to the test. Sakura-chan, Naruto said with a pout. It's almost like you want us to get hurt now. Right away, Sakura hit him. Right away, Sasuke slowly moved away from them, hoping to be far away before Sakura thought to try to heal him. He wasn't sure Naruto wasn't right. He demanded, see, while holding his head in a dramatic way. I bet you did that just so you could fix it, didn't you? As the green healing chakra wrapped around Sakura's hand, she rolled her eyes. Just get over here so I can see what marks Sasuke left on you, she said. She frowned as she slowly ran her hand over Naruto's chest. She asked, how can this be? You don't have any injuries at all. Naruto ducked back, and her hand fell off of him. He laughed and rubbed the back of his neck in shame. He tried to play it down by saying, well, you know, I've always healed quickly. Naruto was trying to play off of something, and Sasuke narrowed his eyes to see what it was. He made them wonder if it was another secret he wasn't telling his teammates. That's all, nay, now you better fix Sasuke quick or he might not be enough of a pretty boy for you anymore. He got a mean look from Sasuke. Naruto wasn't annoying because he said, pretty boy, though he could be annoying when he wanted to. He was annoying because he got Sakura to look at him instead of her. On paper, he believed in Sakura completely and didn't mind that she used medical jutsu. In real life, he found that he much preferred having his Iryunin be fully certified and in a hospital. And he had a strange fear of his 12-year-old teammate doing things on him that she had only read about in books. She told him, take off your shirt, Sasuke. He sighed, but he did what she said without getting angry, what he did for his team. Ooh, so, this is Haifu? Sasuke asked. Sasuke said, it's big. Kakashi gave them all a nod and watched as they looked around the city with wide eyes. He knew how people felt because he had been to Haifu a few times for different jobs. From the top of a hill, they could see the busy downtown area. There were a ridiculous number of brightly painted buildings crammed together, some of them almost as tall as the Hokage Monument. The buildings lined the streets, which were full of people, vendors, horses, and carts, all shouting, singing, bartering, and talking in a crazy cacophony of sound. Naruto seemed to really enjoy it, of course. As the main port for ships coming from water country in the eastern continent, it was one of the wealthiest cities in fire country. Because of all the trade with other countries, many people from other countries moved to the city, which turned it into a lively, bright melting pot. Tsunade said that was also where Jiraiya was. They just needed to find him now. In a very big city, he was supposed to be on a ship going to water country in a few days. The Hokage had given them a lot of freedom with this mission, but it wasn't really his job to follow Jiraiya to water country. As they made their way to the docks, he waved for them to follow him and stay close as he led them through the crowds. And it turned out they were lucky because they seemed to have caught it during the quiet time that happened when no ships were about to dock or leave. You three wait out here, Kakashi told them when they got to the dock master's office. He thought that being alone there would help him. He told them, don't get lost. I'll be back in a few minutes. When they nodded, still a little stunned, he went inside. It was common for dock masters to want copies of all passenger logs for ships that came into the country while they were in charge. Kakashi was sure that this dock master would be no different. Kakashi was able to get them to let him see the records he wanted, but it took some persuasion and a small amount of genjutsu. They found that Jiraiya had come in the night before, which made him feel better because he thought Tsunade might have led them astray out of spite. He couldn't find any records of Jiraiya being on an outgoing passage, though, so Kakashi had to guess that he either hadn't bought it yet or had bought it under a different name. As he went back outside to meet his team, he thought about both options. She asked, find anything? About what I thought it would be, Kakashi said with a shrug. So, you three come up with any ideas on how to find Jiraiya? Sensei, if he's here, you know he'll be in the Akasan, right? Naruto asked again. Kakashi asked, do you know where Hifu's red light district is? Naruto turned his head away. Me, either. So I repeat myself. Any ideas? Sakura said, we could spread out and look for it. Naruto looked at them both over and said, that's just asking for trouble with you two. As Sasuke frowned at Sakura, she asked, "What's that supposed to mean?" Naruto said, "That means you two are too pretty to be healthy. Or mine. If we split up, I'd spend the whole time terrified one of you would somehow accidentally manage to sell yourself." It was Kakashi who teased Naruto. "Ah, don't you think I'm pretty, Naruto-kun?" Naruto made a noise. "You're too old for the skin trade, and if you couldn't keep the local Yakuza from buying you, I'm pretty sure you shouldn't be a Junin in the first place." Accidentally. Sell. Ourselves? Sasuke asked, shocked and unable to move on. Naruto said in agreement. "For a night if you were lucky, forever if you weren't." Saying, "So, I vote for not splitting up," Sakura was firm. "I think we should go wait at a ramen stand while my clones find an Akasenko to find Jiraiya for us," Naruto said. "One of the kids who grew up in the red light district here will be able to find him quicker, easier, and safer than we could splitting up." Sasuke scowled and said, "Sakura and I aren't helpless, you know." Naruto just shrugged and said, "We're shinobi too." "Yeah, but you're also a pretty boy virgin who's never dealt with yaks," said Naruto. "And you're not?" Sasuke asked back. Naruto gave a blink. "Well, no," Naruto said with a head scratch. It didn't make Sasuke feel better, or satisfy everyone's insatiable desire to know what Naruto didn't say. He told himself to be patient. When he was ready, Naruto would tell everyone what he knew. He only had to wait for a while. "How much do you know about the skin trade, Naruto?" Kakashi asked slowly, not only being interested in Naruto's answer but also in how he knew that much. "Enough," Naruto said with a shrug. Shikara asked, "What's the skin trade?" Naruto and Kakashi both looked at her. "And what's a yak?" Naruto saw that Sasuke was also paying close attention. He sighed and ran his hand through his hair. "And you want them to go into the Akasen to find someone?" "We're perfectly capable," he told her. "Not in the Akasen, you aren't." Sasuke looked very angry. "Stop being a baby," he told her. "We're just as capable as you are." "There, Genin. I think you're going a little too far there, Naruto," Kakashi said as Sasuke gave Naruto a dark look. "Maybe, but I don't think so," Naruto replied with a shake of his head. "And even if we are all shinobi, you're the only one of us who looks like it, sensei. It would be very troublesome to have to dissuade the locals they were wrong if they got it into their head they wanted to add to their stables." Kakashi said calmly, rubbing his chin. Naruto seemed to know a lot about these things, which made him mad. He was very worried about how and why he was going to get it. But it looked like he was really worried, and Kakashi never laughed off worries. Then again, he was pretty sure Naruto was being too dramatic. Naku asked, "Look, can we at least try it my way?" "Do you think an Akasenko would really be able to locate Jiraiya?" Kakashi asked him. Naruto said, yes, and Kakashi had no choice but to believe him because he was so sure of it. It wasn't hard for them to find something to eat while they camped. It wasn't at a ramen stand, which was bad for Naruto. In any case, this didn't bother Sasuke at all. He much liked the yakitori they had ordered. He did feel bad that they bought the sticks from a street vendor because now they were walking through some of the city's less crowded areas instead of sitting down somewhere Sasuke could be careful to watch Naruto without making it look like he was watching him. Getting Kakashi to pay for them all was more than enough to make up for it. Sakura accidentally brought up a subject that Sasuke really wanted to be answered when she asked, "So how will you find one of those children anyway?" Naruto rubbed the back of his head and asked, It looked like Sasuke was looking up at the laundry lines that went from window to window across the street and up and down the buildings. He tilted his head and looked at them. About half of them were covered with different colors of laundry that were drying. It was different enough that he would have looked at it normally, but he was really just using it as an excuse to watch Naruto answer Sakura's question. She asked, "What did you call them again?" "Akasenko. Those are kids who were born in the red light district, right?" He said, yeah. "Well, you know, on our way to the docks, we passed at least half a dozen boys running games. I'd be surprised if even one of them wasn't an Akasenko. They aren't really that hard to find, it's just that nobody really wants to see them." Naruto looked like he was in pain. You know what? He was trying to hide it, and he was really good at it. He tried to hide it from Sasuke, but the latter was too aware and knew his teammate too well to believe him. Sakura turned her head to the side and said, "I don't get it." When Sasuke went to throw away the wooden stick, he stopped in shock when he saw that the trash can was shaped like a fox and painted a bright pink. Before it made him blind, he quickly turned away and saw Kakashi looking at Naruto over his always present book. "They're just kids," Sakura said next. "Why wouldn't anybody want to see them?" "Well, you know what goes on beyond the red line, right?" Naruto asked him. Sakura's face turned a deep red. "Baka," she laughed and hit him on the arm to hide how embarrassed she was. "What does that have to do with anything?" Naruto looked away from his teammates and said, "Well, sometimes the men who come to visit aren't as careful as they should be, and sometimes those actions have consequences. But the men who visit don't like to know about it, and nobody else wants to think about it at all. So when the consequences happen to be boys, when they get old enough they sometimes learn how to pick a pocket clean, or how to run a dice game, or run a con, or any one of 100 ways to fleece a mark. Sasuke almost said, "You told us that you used to run games," but he didn't. Sasuke bit his cheek as he thought about everything and wondered if he was starting to understand. This caused little bits and pieces of what Naruto had done and said to come to the forefront of his mind. Naruto wasn't aware that Sasuke was watching him even when he thought no one was there. Naruto wasn't sure why Sasuke was thinking about him so carefully, though. He was the same now as he was in Kamado or Saijin City. Then he thought about how Sasuke came from a noble family and was rightly thought to be very smart. Naruto hadn't made it clear where he came from, but he also hadn't been too careful about hiding it either. He thought for the first time in a long time that he might be turned away again because of them. Because kids who were born smart didn't usually hang out with kids who had worked hard to get out of the gutters. This whole thing was very scary. When one of Naruto's clones disappeared after getting information on Jiraiya, he was very happy about the break. He told them, "Success. Jiraiya's location isn't far from here." Sailor Moon said, "That was really fast. How did the kid find Jiraiya-sama so fast?" Naruto asked with a shrug. "The Akasenko. The children of the Red Light District. They know more about what's going on than most anybody gives them credit," he stated. "And Jiraiya isn't exactly inconspicuous." "Good, Naruto," Kakashi said as he put his book away for the day. "Show us the way." Naruto rubbed the back of his head and asked, "Are you sure? After all of that, you're going to let them go into the Akasen anyway?" Kakashi said with a shrug, "They'll have to find out about it sometime." Naruto asked, "Aren't you going to tell them what to expect?" "Hey, Naruto, we're not like little kids who need to be kept safe," Sasuke said. "No, you're not," Naruto agreed. "But you two are 12 years old and have never been to a whorehouse before," she said. Sasuke pursed his lips because he couldn't say anything else. It was real. That wasn't true for Naruto. Sasuke told himself to be patient. Then he told himself that being patient wasn't his thing and it was time to push a bit. "You're only 12, too. How is it you have been in a whorehouse?" Sasuke inquired. "How is it you know so much about the Akasen and the Yakuza?" Naruto stopped moving and his eyes grew wide in shock. He couldn't figure out how to make words with his mouth. Kakashi spoke up impatiently, "Ma, I thought we were in the middle of a mission right now." He thought Sasuke should kill him. He was almost able to get to the bottom of things. Now really isn't the time for such things. "Naruto, show us the way to where Jiraiya-sama is. And all of you should watch out for pickpockets and generally be on your toes. You never know what kind of trouble you might run into once you pass the red line, understand?" Sasuke wasn't sure if he did or not because he had never been to the Red Light District before, but he still said yes. Sakura also agreed, then frowned and pulled on Kakashi's vest. "Anyo, Kaka-sensei, will you make sure I don't accidentally sell myself?" He smiled. "Would I let something like that happen to one of my cute students?" She made a face and scrunched up her nose, then turned to Naruto. "Naruto, will you make sure I don't accidentally sell myself?" Kakashi got angry. "Ooh." Naruto moved through the streets of Hifu's Akasen like he was from there. He easily avoided thieves, drunk people, and other dangers, which was only possible after a lot of practice. When he saw a small group of local yaks set up to demand taxes, he skillfully led his team to a small detour. The same thing he did when he saw a group of young boys he was sure were pickpockets working together to cause trouble. Even though he saw a boy take a clean swipe of a John's wallet, Naruto couldn't take a detour when they were only about 50 meters away from their goal. Even when he saw the boy's eyes light up when he saw them and run toward them. Instead, Naruto grabbed the boy as he walked by them. "Hey, what are you doing?" the kid asked, his messy hair falling across his face. "Leave off. I didn't do nothing to Yas." He laughed and said, "Sure you didn't." The kid was probably only 8 years old. His dark blue pants were way too big on him and his shirt, which may have been white at first but had been worn more than once, was dirty and worn out. Kakashi asked, "Naruto?" Naruto then grabbed 2 wallets from the kid's loose pants and threw them at Sasuke and Sakura. After blinking, both of them checked the rest of their pockets for anything else that could have been taken. That kid said, "Don't know how those got there, mister," all of a sudden being very polite even though he was still trying hard to get Naruto off of his wrist. He replied, "Of course you don't." He took 3 scrolls and a comb off the child and shook his head. He shook his head and asked, "Really? A comb?" The child hesitated and then gave a shrug. "Thought it might be something else," he stated. "How do you know I did it? Didn't even try to lift anything from you." "Kid, you may be a pickpocket, but I'm a better one. I saw you coming 3 marks back." The kid turned to look at him. He looked at his Hite 8 and said, Now let me give you some advice. Do you see this? You see anyone wearing one of these, it means they're a ninja and you want to steer clear. They're faster, stronger, and better than any mark you might ever imagine. I saw a kid try to make a lift once and get a knife through his hand before he could even stash it. You understand? The kid's eyes got really big, and he nodded quickly. He was clearly scared that Naruto was going to stab him right there. Naruto told the kid, "Don't worry, kid. I'm not going to do anything. I just want you to be more careful with your marks." He then let the kid go. He rubbed his wrist and was about to run away when he stopped. "Do you think I could be a ninja too?" he asked, wanting to know more than wanting to stay safe. Naruto made a face. "Maybe, but it's harder work than anything you've ever done before." The kid's nose turned up. "Nah, never mind then." He ran off quickly. Naruto turned around to face Sasuke and Sakura, who were staring at him. He gave them the scrolls and combed back. Sakura said, Thanks." Sasuke made a noise. "Mo, you were a thief once," Kakashi asked. He shrugged and said, "Well, it's not really something you ever stop being." Sasuke asked, "Were you any good?" Naruto made a face. "I could pick any of your pockets clean and you'd never notice." "Really? You should know that I'm a Junin," Kakashi replied. Naruto gave a shrug. He smiled and held up Kakashi's wallet. "Of course, the more aware a mark is, the more careful you have to be about it. But Junin or no, I've never had a problem." Kakashi blinked, then took it back and put it away. Okay, enough. Now where's this place Jiraiya is supposed to be?" "This is it," Naruto said, pointing across the street to a 3-story building. Kakashi said, "Yes," and went to the front door. "TCH." Naruto laughed and grabbed his arm. "Don't you know anything? Do you see a lantern in the window?" "No, me either. It's closed. Going to the front door will only attract more attention to us than we've already managed." He had, of course, been to brothels before, both for fun and on missions, so he knew that the window wasn't lit up because the lantern wasn't there. But he also knew they had to get in. Over the years, he had learned that knocking was most of the time the easiest way to do it. Kakashi raised an eyebrow and asked, "Oh, then what do you think we should do?" It made Naruto roll his eyes. Naruto said, "Of course we go through the back door." Before Kakashi could stop him, he sneaked down the alley and knocked on the back door. The door was opened by an older woman whose hair was styled in a knot. "Ah, honorable sir, please forgive this one, but it must be said that this humble establishment is closed," she replied, bowing. Kakashi started, Then Naruto cut him off. He asked, "Are you the mother here?" The woman shook her head and turned her head to the side. "That's who we need to talk to." The woman paused, not sure if she should let them in or not. Nairo said, "Let's wait here for her." The woman said, "Thank you, sir. This one shall only be a moment." Though she was gone, Naruto could still feel the curious looks going deep into the back of his head. He was afraid to turn around. It scared him that they might not want him around after this because he was sure they would figure everything out. In the end, it had happened before. The woman who came to the door asked, "I've heard you have business with me." She wore a kimono that was nice, but mostly practical. Her hair had turned a steely gray color. He could see both the knife she had hidden in her sleeve and the one she had hidden in her obi. She looked at Sasuke and Sakura and said, "I'm not in the market for new acquisitions, and even if I were, I don't buy virgins, much less boys or little girls. You could try Wari's establishment a few streets down." "They're not for sale," Naruto said, even though they were shocked that someone might want to buy them. He didn't pay attention to Kakashi, who was laughing. "And we're not here to cause you any trouble. We've been sent with a message for your guest, and would like to wait for him in one of your parlors so as not to bring any extra or undesirable attention to your establishment." "Oh?" she asked with a raised eyebrow, and Naruto agreed. "Very well, this way." She led them to a sitting room that was empty. "Some of the girls may wander through. I expect you to not bother any of them, especially if they decide to practice," she told me. Naruto said, "I understand," bending down a little and putting a small pouch in her hand. Another raised eyebrow as she said, "For the trouble." She then bowed and tucked it into her sleeve. The woman said, "Thank you, sir. I will send a girl in with tea for you and your companions." When she left, there was a sudden roar of male laughter from above, followed by squealing sounds from girls. He finally let himself look at his team out of the corner of his eye as he sat down on one of the soft couches. Sakura and Sasuke looked less at ease than he had ever seen them. He opened his mouth to say something to take their minds off of where they were, but quickly shut it with a click. He was afraid that whatever he said would backfire. Kakashi looked at Naruto and thought about how easily he had gotten along with the Akasen as a whole. "You're very comfortable here," he said. "I'd almost think you'd spent time in a similar establishment before." When Naruto saw how interested Sakura and Sasuke were in what they were saying, he gave him a funny look and shrugged. His guess was that they would figure it out in the end. He had no choice but to do it or not do it. Naruto always liked being damned for what he did. He finally said, I have spent a lot of time in places like this before. Where do you think I grew up that I know so much about how the red light district works? After he said that, he looked down at the table, pulled a deck of cards out of his jacket, and started to mix them up. It's not that he didn't notice how his teammates changed, and know that what you said was definitely wrong. The way Sakura looked, it was clear that she hadn't even begun to understand what was going on. For some reason, Sasuke looked like he had won. It looked like even Kakashi was upset. He started to use the cards and tricks he had learned years before without giving it much thought. His hands still remembered the complicated moves that made the cards dance. When a girl with a tea tray walked in, the flying cards caught her eye right away. This person brought tea for the Honorable Sir and his friends, if that's okay, she said, her eyes still on the cards. With a flick of his wrist, Naruto stacked the cards back up and gave a thumbs up. He said, it does, you can call me Naruto. As she poured and offered the cup, he changed the cards into a different trick. If this one may be so bold, it appears you are quite the master of the cards, she noted. I picked up a few things here and there, Naruto said with a shrug. And you can cut the hostess speech. I'm not a customer. She looked confused and blinking as she said, but mom told me to keep you busy, heaved a sigh. He looked at Nichan's cards and asked, do you know how to play? Her eyes got bigger and brighter. Naruto replied, I'll take that as a yes, but only if you really play. Like I said, I'm not a customer. His team watched as they played a game that looked way too complicated and fast-paced. A different girl came in and saw them playing. She clapped and begged to join in. When some more girls joined, the game sped up and became more intense. Given how many of my girls you bother, I might have charged you the same as Jiraiya-sama, Naruto said. He didn't even look up from his card game to answer. He said, but mother, it's not my fault all the Nichan wanted to play, as he slapped his hand on the table to lay claim to a bunch of cards. One of the girls yelled, not fair, mother distracted us. But Nichan, it's not my fault mother came in, he said without meaning to. Yes, it is, mother said. Jiraiya-sama is washing himself, and will shortly be down to meet with you. Naruto said, finally, and he cracked his neck by moving his head back and forth. I bet the old man took even longer than usual, just to make us wait for him. A deep voice said, that's fair. Naruto and the rest of Team 7 looked at Jiraiya as he came down the stairs. His hair was still wet from the shower, and his yukata was only half tied. Naruto asked, Mother, Nichan, could you please excuse us? The mother gave a nod and walked away, and the girls quickly bowed and followed. Araya asked, what do you spoiled kids want? Sandame-sama sent us with a message, Kakashi said, putting out the bound scroll. Jiraiya gave it to him with a scowl and cut the seal with his thumb. He quickly read it and then used a small fire jutsu to burn it. You can tell the old man I've received and acknowledged it, he stated. Did it ask you to come back to Konoha, like the one we gave to Tsunade-sama? Sakura was curious. Oh, you also had to look for my old teammate? Jiraiya asked with a laugh. I'm surprised none of you have any broken bones. Why would we? Sakura asked with her eyes wide open. She was very nice, except when she made us buy her drinks. And she's going to teach me when we get back to Konoha. Jiraiya told her, good luck with that promise, girlie, she'll never go back. Kakashi didn't agree with, she told us she was. Of course she did, Jiraiya said with a smirk. I bet she's halfway across wind by now. The only way she would go back to Konoha is by force. Or by bribery and blackmail, Naruto said. He got a strange look from Jiraiya. Whatever, Jiraiya said without much thought. Now scram, brats. Kakashi told him, I had something else to talk about with you. Kids, wait outside. Naruto replied, we'll wait with the Nichan in the kitchen. I'd really rather wait outside, Naruto, Sakura said in a soft voice. This place doesn't feel right to me, Sasuke said with a grunt. Naruto didn't clench his hands, but he couldn't quite control his jaw either. He then left without saying anything else. He went back through the kitchen for a moment to say goodbye to the Nichan and thank the mother. He then sat down on the back stoop with his back to the door. When Sakura and Sasuke came up behind him a moment later, he was careful not to look at them. Instead, he looked down the street at the two older boys and the younger boy who were going their separate ways. The older two were probably going to wait with Akash in an alley for the younger boy to bring back their mark. Putting his head in his hands, he sighed and wished that his team had never been sent on these stupid missions. They wish he hadn't told them where he was from in the first place. He wished that his team still liked him as much as they liked Kamado. It looks like when you were an Akasenko, not even Shinobi cared how good you were. Ooh, this is what Sakura asked Naruto. What's wrong? Even though he would never say it out loud, Sasuke was glad she did. The angry look on Naruto's face bothered him, and it would have been better for everyone if Sakura had asked things like that. Naruto told them, "I'm fine," and then he looked at a kid who was coming toward them. That only made Sasuke mad. Naruto should have at least paid attention to them. He wasn't even paying attention to them, so how could he show Naruto that it was okay to tell them his secrets? When the boy came up to them and called out, Sakura couldn't finish her thought, "But you." Hey, misters, lady," he called out. "Please, can you help me?" If Sasuke hadn't been holding back his emotions for so long, he would have stood there and raised an eyebrow. Because Naruto wasn't responding at all the way Sasuke thought he would. Naruto was always the first person to offer to help someone with anything. "We're not interested," Naruto snapped back. "Please," the boy said over and over, "my little brother is hurt." "I'm sure the mother here wouldn't be happy to hear about you hassling folks on her steps," Naruto said, "now scram." "Naruto," Sakura told him to behave. "He obviously needs our help. Let him talk." "Yes, please, I just need you to help me get him out," he said. "Something fell on him, and I can't lift it off him by myself. I don't know what to do." Sasuke didn't say anything but asked, "Where is he?" Because it was clear that Naruto knew more than him about what was going on, and he thought that by playing along, Naruto might tell him more of his secrets. Perhaps. He tried to tell Sasuke, "He's not." The kid said, Thank you so much. He's just back this way." "This is one of the oldest tricks in the book," Naruto said, staying put on the step. "Get the mark to follow you to an alley where your friend is waiting with a bat." Fuck, I used to run this trap myself. It wasn't clear if he was mad at himself, his team, or the kid. The kid looked around and asked, "What? I don't know what you're talking about, mister. Please, I just need to help my brother." "Kid," Naruto laughed. "I was in your shoes once, so let me give you fair warning. 1. More agile fingers than yours already tried to pick their pockets and were caught out. And 2. They're shinobi. So your partners better be damn good and damn fast." The child stopped moving and looked at Naruto, then at Sasuke and Sakura. The kid said, "Ah, shit." After that, he ran away. Sasuke went after Naruto right away. He finally wanted to know the answer, so Sasuke asked, "How do you know about all of this?" "A real answer. A full answer, not just a piece of an answer that was more of a distraction than a real answer." "Look," Naruto said as he stood up and turned away, "it doesn't matter anymore. So drop it, okay? It's not important." It was almost eye level between Sasuke and Naruto, who was sitting a few steps higher than Naruto. "I think it is," Sasuke said without much thought. "So you were a thief in addition to a pickpocket? And I already know you're a conman. And you grew up in brothels. With what you told us, you were probably an Akasenko yourself. Am I right?" Sasuke jumped when Naruto kicked the house really hard. Sasuke looked at her for a moment and saw that her hands were twiddling in pain. He then turned back to Naruto. Because he knew the answers now. He had told them everything about himself, so Naruto should at least return the favor. Fine, Naruto said in a sour voice. He kicked the wall again, then turned around and looked Sasuke straight in the eye. His eyes were darker and angrier than Sasuke had ever seen them. "If you want to do this, fine. Yes, I'm a no-name orphan born in the wrong part of Konoha, way behind the red line. So yeah, I'm an Akasenko. And yeah, I grew up around people you'd never want to meet and stealing and picking pockets and staying in brothels and running numbers for the yaks. I did all manner of things nice boys and girls from good families would never even want to know about. Is that what you wanted to know, Sasuke? Are you happy now? Anything else you want to pick at me for?" Sasuke gave Naruto a shrug and carefully watched him breathe heavily. "Don't know, are there any other secrets you've been keeping from us?" He thought that by saying, "So what, anything bigger," he was being casual and okay with what he thought was Naruto's big secret. They thought he was showing that he didn't care about it. But when Naruto jerked back and looked away, Sasuke saw that there was still something bigger. Naruto swore and hit the wall with his fist, and Sasuke bit his tongue to remember not to do the same. Naruto's continued lack of trust hurt him more than he thought it would. Jiraiya said, "Well," as the genin walked away, "let's hope you still have a team when you meet them. I bet their pockets are lighter." He raised a saucer of sake as a toast and drank it. "Now what did you want to talk to me about that you didn't want the brats to hear?" "You already know who my blonde student is," Kakashi said. "Of course," Jiraiya said. "He's something of a fuinjutsu prodigy." The only thing Jiraiya did was raise an eyebrow a little. After that, he poured himself another sake saucer. "Of course he is," Jiraiya replied. "And you, knowing I'm a seal master, want me to take the brat as an apprentice?" "No go. I told Sarutobi I was through with students years ago. I don't know why he persists in sending every Junin sensei who gets a genin that can draw an explosive tag out to deliver a message to me." He got a mad look from Kakashi. Kakashi said in a tight voice, I'm not just some new Junin sensei. It made Jiraiya roll his eyes. Kakashi said, no, listen to me. I'm not some upstart young Junin looking for reflected praise from having you accept one of my students. I was the student of the fourth, and I'm a genius and a legend in my own right. Hell, if the third has his way, I'll be more than just a Junin in the not too distant future. And I'm not some idiot who knows nothing about seals. So listen to what I'm telling you. When it comes to seals, Naruto is a genius. Kakashi took a moment to make his point clear. He's already exhausted all of my knowledge, and he's coming up with things I've never even heard of before, much less seen. And he designs complete, functioning seal sets in the same amount of time it would take most masters to just write them. I laughed. TCH, Jiraiya said. I'm sure whatever it is the brat's done can't be that unique. Kakashi would have said something, but he saw a spark of interest in the man's otherwise uninterested eye. Kakashi rubbed his chin and thought, well, I guess that might be true. But, well, have you heard of the great Naruto Lagoon in Kamado? He was so innocent and carefree. Just recently, Jiraiya said with some doubt. That's because it was just recently constructed. And what Naruto do you think it was named after? Kid created it. With seals. Using them to control and divert millions of gallons of flood water. The hairs on Jiraiya's forehead stood up above his bangs. You can't be serious. Kakashi told him, I told you, he's far outstripped me in Fuinjutsu. And you want me to hire him as an apprentice? Jiraiya asked, his mind going over all the things that could go wrong. Absolutely not, Kakashi replied right away, he's mine. Naruto and Team 7 are mine. When Jiraiya heard Kakashi's angry voice, he asked, you don't want me to take him? Then what did you want? What I was hoping was that you'd spend a bit of time with him. Talk to him for a while, make sure he understands what he needs to do to not get himself killed or blown up while trying to come up with something new. He said, in a thoughtful way. Well, I suppose I can at least meet the brat. That was all Kakashi had to say because he was sure Jiraiya would agree to anything else. He began to say, thank you, but stopped himself because he felt a small shock coming from the pouch on his belt. He took out a small tube and was about to pull out the message when Jiraiya grabbed it. What is this? He asked, looking at the different seals that were written on top of it. Another idea Naruto came up with, Kakashi said, reading the message with a frown. As he told the Hokage what he knew, he wrote a note back to him. This is just the prototype. We're doing a field test before it's introduced into more general usage. I don't understand all of the theory behind it, but from what Naruto's explained, it's connected to another tube the Hokage has, and transports messages back and forth. He came up with it on our way back from Kamado, because he was annoyed at how long the messenger hawks took. Because of what it meant, Jiraiya's eyes got really big. You now understand why I want you to talk to him, Kakashi told Jiraiya as he grabbed the messenger tube. Unfortunately, we have to go. Next time you're in Konoha, I would appreciate you stopping by to talk to Naruto. He went out the back to find his team, leaving Jiraiya sitting in his robe and a little shocked. He felt bad about the timing because he would have had Jiraiya hooked if it had happened the next day. But he thought that emergencies were part of being a shinobi's life. Okay, kids, we have to. He stopped when he saw that Sasuke and Sakura were giving Naruto angry looks while he sat with his back to them. This wasn't right. He didn't have time to deal with it at that time, though. We've just gotten an urgent message from the Hokage, said Kakashi. So whatever's going on, we need it canned until we're through. Understood? She said, yes, sensei, but she was shocked. Naruto turned back to Kakashi and looked interested as Sasuke grunted. Naruto asked, the message tube worked this far away. Was there any time differential? Was there any lag? What about the message? Was there any damage to it? And what about? Naruto stopped talking when he saw Kakashi's embarrassed look. He asked, you forgot to write down the time, didn't you? Well, that is, it was only a minute ago, so. And did the Hokage mark the time? Kakashi had rarely been happier that he had spent years learning all of his orders by heart. So there isn't much time difference after all, Naruto said in a low voice. He glared at Kakashi and said, of course, I'll have to do it with more reliable test subjects. For now, it'll have to be enough to know that it works at a distance, said Kakashi. We have an urgent mission from the Hokage. A Genin team was sent on a C-rank mission to Weeb, but Hokage-sama just got additional intel that reclasses it to an A rank. We're only an hour away, so we're being sent to stop them and bring them back to Konoha. Jiraiya spoke from behind him. Ah, good, you're still here. I think I'll be coming with you for this. Oh? Kakashi asked with a raised eyebrow. He put out his hand for the tube and said, I'm not done looking at that tube yet. And I believe I still need to speak to the brat. Alright, Kakashi said. Let's go. Out of the corner of Naruto's eye, he caught Jiraiya's attention. He was impressed that the man could look at the tube and keep up with them as they ran quickly to Wave Country. The man asked, well what? Naruto asked in a confused tone. You tell me, Jiraiya said. Naruto did nothing but blink and tilt his head to the side. You keep looking at me like I'm about to make off with this thing. Are you? Naruto asked. He had learned early in life that nothing was ever a given. Baka. Sakura laughed. Jiraiya-sama is one of the Sannin of the Leaf. He isn't just going to steal something from a fellow Leaf Nin. Be quiet now, Kakashi told them. We're almost there. Naruto shut his mouth tight and fixed his gaze ahead. They had to put it away for the mission because Kakashi told them to, and he was not going to break that order. Even though the fact that Sasuke hadn't talked to him since leaving Haifu was bothering him a lot, since they learned he was from the Red Light District. Naruto wasn't going to make things happen either. Even though Naruto had never thought of himself as very shy, he was quickly realizing that he was annoyingly shy. He thought about it, though, he had never cared so much about someone else's opinion. Plus, he was pretty sure that Sasuke and Sakura would turn him down because he was an Akasenko. In the end, Konoha as a whole had. They stopped just before getting to the main road, where the forest split in two. After being in the dense, shaded woods for a long stretch, the road was hit by direct sunlight that was so bright it hurt the eyes and could give people sunspots that made it impossible for them to see. Greater Shinobi had been killed by blurred vision before them, so Kakashi told them to wait in the shade while he bit his thumb and did a long series of hand seals. He then slammed his palm to the ground. In a puff of smoke, a pug wearing a blue vest and a Konoha forehead protector showed up. Pakun, Kakashi said with a wink. Yo, the dog said. You call me to finally meet your brats? The three Genin's eyebrows twitched in irritation. We're right here, you know, Sakura said with her teeth clenched. This is our search for another Genin team, Kakashi told the dog. They got assigned a mission with bad intel. I need you to find their trail. Fine, put me right to work, the irritated dog spoke. Naruto was curious about the summons as he watched the dog sniff around. He had heard that Kakashi could call a dog, but he had never seen one beforehand. The dog said, I get it, and I smell blood, lots of it. They went after the missing team right away, following the pug along the main road because they were sure that the team had been hurt before they could catch up. Kakashi said, shit, as they found the site of what looked like a bloody battle. Spread out. See if anyone's still here. Naruto and his teammates nodded and then went their separate ways to look for any survivors they could find. No one, Naruto replied. He showed a bunch of kunai and shuriken and said, just these. Both Sasuke and Sakura had the same news. Pakun picked up the scent again and said, they kept going this way. Team 7 moved quickly to catch him. The scent Pakun was following made Naruto wonder if it came from the team's dead bodies. He hoped very much that it wasn't. They didn't have to wait long before Kakashi told them to stop. Naruto could hear the distinct sounds of metal hitting metal. He knew that at least one of the Konoha ninjas was still alive because of this. They moved more carefully into place so they could see what was going on. All three Genin seemed to be alive, but one of them and their Junin sensei looked like they were seriously hurt. And the person Naruto thought was the client looked completely terrified but not too badly hurt. Naruto said that the missing nin was at the Junin level just because of his chakra, and the two Genin who were still alive were putting up a brave fight against him. It was clear that he was making fun of the Genin by playing with them like a cat plays with its food. As he looked at Kakashi, the funny, perverted, and friendly sensei suddenly changed into the fiercely serious shinobi who had become a Junin at age 12 and was one of Konoha's most feared ninjas. He flicked his left hand to tell his team in Anbu sign language that he would take care of the missing ninja while they went to get the Konoha team and their client. Not a single one of them made a point, not even Naruto. It took Kakashi a long time to force them to understand that even though they were advanced for Genin, there was still a big difference between them and a Junin. Naruto thought that Kakashi might have liked those lessons a little more than they were supposed to be fun. Then Kakashi gave the signal to go, and everyone did something quickly. It didn't take the Genin long to get their goals back and regroup where Jiraiya was standing, still looking at the tube and waiting for them to finish. We have to help Kuro-sensei, one of the Genin said, fighting Naruto's hold to get back to fighting the missing nin. Cut it out, Kakashi-sensei is taking care of that guy, Naruto said as he threw out 6 of his special kunai to make onigiri cage bunshin to keep an eye on things while he was away. Jiraiya's attention went right to the onigiri bunshin. It was blunt, but Naruto told the two Genin, if you go back out there, you'll only distract Kakashi-sensei and get yourselves and him killed. So sit down and shut up until I tell you otherwise. Now Sakura, anything you can do to help any of these guys? She said, I don't, maybe, biting her bottom lip in worry. I don't know that much yet, and I might. Naruto told Sakura, for now, it's you or nothing. So can you help any of them heal? Yes or no? She took a big breath in. Yes, she replied, I'll try. Sasuke gave her a clear nod of approval and began to watch over them while she worked on Junin-sensei and Genin, who were badly hurt. He then looked at the other two Genin. He told them, now you two are going to tell me everything that's happened. The Kunoichi spoke up. We were assigned a C-rank mission to escort the bridge builder Tazuna back to Wave and guard him from bandits while he finished his bridge, she said quickly. We were attacked by two missing nin when we were a bit more than 2/3 of the way to Tazuna-san's home. Kuro-sensei killed them, but was injured and fell unconscious, and since we were closer to Tazuna-san's than Konoha we opted to bring him there. Then we were attacked by this missing nin, and you came. The male genin slouched down and passed out, and Naruto cursed as he did so. After calling Sakura over, he looked at Kakashi to see if he needed anything. Jiraiya looked at him, but he couldn't figure out what was going on, so he put it aside for now and focused on the problems that were in front of him. The missing nin suddenly turned toward them and swung his huge sword at the client. He appeared in the middle of them with a burst of swirling mist. One of the onigiri cage bunshin pushed Tazuna out of the way with a tackle, but the sword cut its back open and made it bleed a lot. With his sword aimed at the real Naruto, the missing nin turned toward him. Even though he knew it wouldn't hurt the ninja, he rolled out of the way and cut the ninja with his kunai as he went by. Then Kakashi showed up with just a kunai and blocked the huge sword, giving Naruto time to move out of the way. He had never been more thankful for his teacher. Not even a second had passed while the two Junin were fighting when a masked hunter nin swooped out of the trees. The missing nin's eyes got really big before he ran away, and the hunter nin was right behind him. Naruto blinked, not sure what had just happened. What the fuck? He asked, his eyes narrowing in shock at the sudden end of the fight. He felt strange, but Kakashi didn't answer or go after the missing ninja, so he ignored it and focused on what he knew he had to do, quickly telling Kakashi what the genin had told him. As Kakashi looked at Tazuna, he had a dangerous gap in his eye. You were going to tell me why there are missing nin after you, Kakashi told the bridge builder, making it clear that the builder could not argue. Tazuna was shaking. Now. He told everything, making up a story about how Gado Corporation was slowly taking over Wave and killing its people and economy. And Tazuna's bridge was meant to change all of that. Tazuna felt sorry for him and said, I knew he might hire missing nin. But this bridge is the last hope of a nation, and we only had enough money to pay for a C-ranked mission and nothing else. Jiraiya spoke up for the first time as he took his attention off of one of Naruto's onigiri clones. Not really true, he said. It looked like the clone was glad to be away from Jiraiya's pokes, Naruto noticed. There's a lot Konoha probably would have accepted in lieu of cash. An exclusive right of first refusal for all ninja contracts, preferential trade status, maybe. We've done things like that in the past, when it's been necessary. He ran his hands over his face and looked scared and confused. Kakashi asked, Sakura, how are Kuro and his genin? I've done the most I think I'll be able to, she stated. I've studied a bunch of scrolls, but I've never done anything like this before, especially not in the field. Kakashi nodded to show that he got it and looked over what she had done as she went on to explain more. Good, he replied. You agree they can be moved without further injury? She said yes. Then we're headed back to Konoha. But, what about me? Tazuna asked. I really couldn't care less, Kakashi said, his voice and eyes being dull. You lied and endangered my fellow Konoha shinobi. But worst of all, it forced my team to come after you, and my kids could have been killed, which makes me more inclined to kill you myself than to help you at all. It was, but the bridge, he begged. It's the last hope for my home, for all of Wave. Not my problem. What if I kept all the promises that guy made? Tazuna asked in a terrible voice. About ninja contracts and trading. Like I said, not my prob, it's a deal, Jiraiya said, taking a piece of paper from Kakashi's message tube and quickly reading it. The Hokage has agreed to the change in the mission parameters, as long as this drunk person has the power to agree on behalf of the Wave. Kakashi clenched his teeth in anger, but he didn't say anything against it. He said, I'm the only one left. I'm the only one who could be headman or elder, so I'm both by default, I guess. No, excuse me, the female genin from the team they had saved said. What about Kuro-sensei? And my teammates? Araya said, Hokage-sama will send a medic with an escort. For now, we just need to get to Wave. Oh, she replied. Good, she passed out, ooh. With the genin of Team 7 and a few of Naruto's clones carrying the unconscious Konoha team and the client, it didn't take them long to get to the channel that separated Wave from the mainland. But Tazuna frowned when they got to the water. A friend with a boat was supposed to meet me, he said, sounding worried. I hope Gado didn't find out and... After Tazuna's words, everyone was left to think about what Gado might have done to the man. Kakashi asked, is there another way to get to Wave? Not until my bridge is finished. Jiraiya looked across the water at Wave and said, He then shrugged. Kakashi had recently used a set of hand seals to call the dog, and Sasuke knew what they were. If it was a universal summoning jutsu, Sasuke had the Sharingan learn it in case he ever came across a summoning contract. He had thought it was a personalized one. A big toad showed up as soon as Jiraiya bit his thumb and slammed his palm to the ground. Giant frog. Tazuna stuttered as he pointed at it. Sasuke knew how shocked he was. Seeing a toad the size of a small house also scared him, but he wouldn't say it, not even when he was forced to. Jiraiya jumped up on the toad's back and asked, "Well, you coming or not?" Kakashi sighed deeply and scratched the back of his head. I hate riding on toads," he complained. "I never quite got the hang of it. Why don't we just walk across the channel instead?" Jiraiya told him, "Stop whining, Gaki." It made Sasuke wonder if anyone else in all the elemental countries could call Sensei a brat and not get in trouble. He didn't believe it when he saw Kakashi's narrowed eye. Jiraiya patted the toad on the back and said, "Get up here. Gamakoi is a great swimmer. He'll get us across the channel in no time." Yeah, Kakashi muttered as he picked up Tazuna, who was still stunned, and jumped on the toad. "Get up here, you brats. If I have to suffer through this, so do you." When Sasuke landed on the toad's back, he made a face. He didn't know it would be so slimy. "Oh, that's gross," Sakura said. "I'm totally burning this dress when we get back home. Toad slime is disgusting." Sasuke was waiting for Naruto to complain, but he just sat there on his side of the toad and didn't look at anyone. This is not like the blonde at all. That being said, Naruto had been acting funny since he asked him about his secrets. He clenched his fist in anger and hoped Naruto was being angry at himself for being so secretive and not trusting his friends. Not that the guilt would have changed anything even if it had. When Naruto looked at them, Sasuke saw something on his face that he wasn't sure what it was. Desire? Feeling sad? Loss? He wasn't sure. But all of a sudden he felt bad about himself. Naruto was his best friend, but he swears that there were times when he felt like Naruto was only there to bother him. What kind of friends could they be if Naruto didn't trust him? Could they have been at any point? "Let's go," Jiraiya said, which made him stop working on his idea. The toad suddenly jumped into the air, and Sasuke almost went flying. He was able to quickly move his chakra and attach himself to the toad's back, but he didn't make it. The toad then landed in the water with a splash, getting them wet all over. Sakura freaked out and screamed. Kakashi said in a low voice, "Shit, I really hate toads." When Sarutobi was done reading the most recent message from Jiraiya, he rubbed his eyes. He was glad Jiraiya was interested enough in Naruto's message tube to follow along, and, he hoped, follow Team 7 all the way back to Konoha. But the message itself made him feel bad. For a mission to be ranked so badly wrong was a big mistake that he needed to fix right away to make sure it didn't happen again. But it was odd that these things followed Naruto around. Then came Komodo, and now Wave. Both villages were in key strategic spots, and Naruto was going to work closely with them to make sure they stayed loyal to Konoha. It gave me something to consider. He was thinking when he heard rustling sounds and a faint hint of chakra that he knew right away. The shock in his voice said, "Tsunade? You really came back to Konoha? If you didn't think I'd come, why send me the message in the first place?" she asked wryly. "Hope springs eternal. Anyway," Tsunade said in a low voice. The third said, "I can't tell you how happy I am to have you back in Konoha." He purposely ignored her angry comment as he tapped out the pipe his student had always hated. "What is it that changed your mind this time, that you would come back now but not at any of my other requests?" She said, "Nothing, really," as she sat down in a chair. "But that blonde kid you sent after me, that Naruto, he convinced me it was time to start paying off my debts." While Naruto was thinking about this, Sarutobi added it to the list of things Naruto had done. "So you want to go back to work?" the Hokage asked. He didn't think Tsunade would want to go back to Konoha, let alone work there. Tsunade laughed and said, "No, not at all. Really, I don't think I'm fit for active duty. I'm taking another apprentice, and I'm opening a medical academy." "Truly?" he asked, feeling both happy and shocked. "An academy for medic nins. That would certainly be beneficial for Konoha, so long as you don't take too many of our active duty nins away from their other responsibilities." "TCH, you never would give me my pick of ninja to train," she said. "I'll take some kids. At least they probably won't have picked up too many bad habits yet." As she got up and started to pace around the room, his mind was already full of different possibilities. "No one knows I'm back yet, so I'm going to scout out possible locations while I'm still under the radar," she stated. "I'd like to let you know about my return at my own pace," she said, giving him a serious look. "Of course," he said. "I would like to discuss this with you in more detail, But at the moment I must find a medic nin and an escort to send after your young friend Naruto and his team. Perhaps we can adjourn until this evening. Satobi hadn't seen Tsunade's eyes look so sharp in years when she asked, "What happened?" Kakashi said they were just going after that Jiraiya. How much trouble could they really have gotten into? After getting the main points of the story across, she was up and leaving before he was even done. "Shizune and I will take care of it," she said, "we'll be back." She was gone. When he tried to tell her about Jiraiya the last time, she hit him with a calligraphy brush. He wasn't sure if he should be glad she left before he could tell her that Jiraiya was still with Team 7 or afraid of how she would react when she got back. When they got to Tazuna's house, they didn't find any other missing nins. Of course, there were some problems on the trip. As soon as they got back to dry land, Sakura tried to kill Jiraiya. Naruto was pretty sure that Kakashi had something to do with how she was able to sucker punch the old man, since their sensei didn't seem to enjoy the toad ride as much as Sakura did. Naruto didn't see what was wrong with it, the toads were cool. When they got close to Tazuna's house, her daughter met them and helped the hurt Genin team and their sensei get settled into one of the bedrooms. After that, she went to bed and left Team 7 and Jiraiya to do their thing. As it turned out, they had made the dining room their small office. The table was wobbly, and none of the chairs were very comfortable. Also, Naruto still hadn't found one of them that had all 4 legs the same height. Kakashi began their unplanned meeting by saying, "So Gato hired Momochi Zabuza, a missing nin from the village hidden in the mist who is also known as the Demon of the Mist." While sitting next to him, Sasuke made it clear that he didn't want to talk to him. While Naruto didn't understand Sasuke's point, he was sure there was one. Somewhere. Perhaps. At least there was a chance of it happening. "I don't know who the fake hunter nin was, but we'll have to assume he's a Junin-level helper," Kakashi said when Naruto joined the conversation again. "Accomplice?" Sakura asked in shock. "But wasn't Momochi running from the hunter nin?" "I believe he was running away from Jiraiya-sama," Sasuke said with some thought. She asked, "You knew the hunter nin was fake?" Sasuke turned his head away. "I knew something was strange with how they tore out of there once Momochi caught sight of Jiraiya-sama, but I didn't know the hunter nin was fake, no." Naruto tried not to sigh. He saw the same things that Kakashi and Sasuke did, but he didn't catch any of them. Jiraiya put his chin on his hand and leaned forward on the table. "Momochi Zabuza doesn't bother me," he said with the careless dismissal of one of Konoha's greatest legends. Naruto had taken Kakashi's bingo book out of his pocket while Kakashi wasn't looking to look up Momochi. He had found that Momochi was not a simple missing ninja. He was also sure that Kakashi's sensei and Jiraiya would be great to have with them. He became even more suspicious when he learned that the hunter nin was working with them. It's very likely that they've run away. A missing nin would care more about staying alive than anything else. They're only out for themselves, and what's the point of finishing a mission if you're not going to live to enjoy the rewards? Jiraiya put his hands behind his head and leaned back in the only comfortable chair in the room. "Nope. Those missing nin won't be a problem. Let's just find out where this Gato is, hun." "Yes," Kakashi said, "I'm on it. Sasuke, with me. Sakura, look after the other team until the medics get here. Naruto, you're with Jiraiya. See what he wants from you." After all 3 of them agreed, Sasuke followed Kakashi out the door, while Sakura went back up to the bedroom they had turned into a makeshift hospital. Naruto had to admit that he was glad to be away from Sasuke's strict eye. He wasn't really used to being watched all the time, but Sasuke seemed much more determined to do it than any of the villagers who didn't like it. He wasn't sure what Sasuke was worried about or if it was just that he didn't trust Naruto anymore since he knew where he was from. A real possibility, no matter how scary it is. Jiraiya leaned his elbows on the table and let his chair fall forward again. "Okay, kid," he said. "Kakashi wanted me to teach you a few things about seals. So why don't you show me what you've got?" "Sure," Naruto said with a shrug that was meant to be casual. Naruto was very nervous because Kakashi had agreed to bring in another teacher, and it was happening at a bad time. Ning thought to himself, surely he wasn't trying to get rid of him as a student. He didn't really do well. What do you want to see first? Naruto took out a small scroll from inside his jacket and unfolded it about a foot. He was looking for a certain storage seal. Then he bit his thumb and used some of his chakra to move it over the seal to open it. "You carry the specs around with you?" Jiraiya asked in a doubtful tone. Naruto said, "Of course." That was the only place he knew for sure he would know right away if it was stolen. He dropped the scroll, and Jiraiya grabbed it and started reading it. He took his eyes off the scroll. "This is nonsense," he said angrily. "Of course it is," Naruto said. "You don't think I'd leave it unsecured so that any old perv who wanted to peep could check it out, do you?" Jiraiya looked more closely at the long scroll. He whispered, "A low-level genjutsu," and then he caught it and broke it. "And an explosive tag?" he asked. shocked to see a defense that was so clear, and one that was so simple to handle. He began the seal sequence to take the tag apart. We'll have to work on how you secure your. If Jiraiya touched the seal, the whole scroll would go away. Naruto just smiled when he looked at him. Araya asked, "What happened to it?" "I told you," Naruto said. "I take care of what's mine, and I sure as hell don't leave something like this under such little security." He got his main storage scroll out of his bag and opened it again. "If someone messes with the seal, it goes back to my storage scroll on its own," Naruto said, turning off the security again before giving it to Jiraiya. "Let me show you what I did in Kamado," he stated. He thought it was the best work he had ever done. He didn't like having to do it, but he knew it was the right thing to do to be safe. So, just in case Kakashi was going to leave him, he had to make sure Jiraiya was interested and impressed enough to take him on. Naruto wanted to lose a bet for the first time ever. While reading a book about seals, Naruto was bored when he heard Sasuke and Kakashi return. Several hours had passed since Jiraiya looked over all of his scrolls. He then pushed him with a stack of books with seals on them. Araya had said, even when the bridge is finished, it will be a weak point. If someone wanted to cut off fire from Weeb, their first point of attack would be that bridge. So you're going to come up with a sealing structure that will protect it. Kakashi says you're a genius. Now prove it. Naruto bit his bottom lip as he thought about what he had to do. He knew that seals could make things last longer because he had based his onigiri bunshin on modified durability seals. Durable seals, on the other hand, would only help protect the bridge from normal wear and tear. Jiraiya was talking about a structure with a seal that would keep it safe from a full-on attack that was meant to destroy it. The texts that Jiraiya sent him didn't help either. Anyhow, in fact, they didn't tell him much more than the Kashiwazaki library primers he had read months before. He slammed his head on the table and thought about what to do next. He didn't know how to start. He would never say that, though. Do not tell Jiraiya. Not when he needed him to be his student. He didn't want to have to pass this stupid as fuck test to prove himself, but he knew he had to. Hearing someone walk into the room made him raise his head. When he turned his head to the side, he saw that it was Sasuke, who just held their breath, looked back at him, and sat down. Sasuke had been watching Naruto every time he turned around since Haifu. He didn't know what Sasuke was trying to do, other than maybe scare him crazy, which he was doing very well. But if there was a point, Sasuke wasn't telling him. Sasuke also didn't say anything. Not to him, anyway. It's not like that was very strange. The only one of them who could talk without words better than Sasuke was Kakashi. Sasuke pulling out a whetstone and starting to work on his kunai without saying a word didn't really surprise him. Inhaling deeply, Naruto tried to return to his seals, but he was unable to do so because the sound of Sasuke dragging the blade against the stone kept drawing his attention away. He finally asked, "What are you doing?" Sasuke gave an odd look. Naruto read the look and said, "I don't mean the kunai." He put his finger between them and said, "I mean, why have you been doing this? You know, following me, watching me." Sasuke looked at him for a short time and then turned his gaze away. "I'm waiting," he finally said. Which was a step forward because Sasuke had spoken to him, but it didn't tell Naruto anything. Which, in turn, made Naruto go completely crazy. "What are you waiting for?" Sasuke just shook his head and put his kunai down. What a jerk. Naruto was determined to ignore him, so he began to look through Jiraiya's books more carefully. There was no description of any of the seals that said, "Pick me. I'm designed to protect a bridge from crazy shinobi and warlords," or even, "handy for protecting civilian infrastructure." That didn't mean that they couldn't be used here. That could have been a stupid test that Jiraiya gave him. He might have been told to find the needle in the haystack that could be best changed into, well, something. He saw that the fact that he didn't know what to protect it from was more than half the problem. He knew how he would destroy a bridge. Despite what Kakashi-sensei said, things could be fixed with explosives. But he also knew that other ninjas would do a lot of different things. "Oi, bastard, if you wanted to destroy the old man's bridge, how would you do it?" "Fire," Sasuke told him, raising an eyebrow as if it were obvious what to do. "It's a bridge made of steel and concrete," Naruto said. "Does that shit even burn?" Sasuke just shrugged. Everything burns if the fire's hot enough. He thought Sasuke would know too. Fire. No matter what he came up with, the bridge had to be safe from both explosions and fires. He thought about it, his lips pursed. What if the shinobi was a water type? He had the power to make a huge wave that would break the bridge. He remembered what Kakashi had done in Kamado to help empty out the bowl for the lake. This made him think that a skilled shinobi could probably either sink the whole bridge into the ground below the channel or call a tornado to destroy it. It was possible for an enemy to do anything. Pour acid on the supports of the building, call down lightning to break the surface, or summon a big-ass toad to squash it. He muttered, "Shit," and hit his head on the table again. How's it coming, genius? His head whipped around when he heard Jiraiya's voice. Naruto insisted, putting a fake grin on his face. Fine. Everything's just, fine. It was, good, Jiraiya said as he waved and left the room. Make sure you don't disappoint me, genius. As he spoke, Jiraiya had already left. I won't, he broke off. Fine. This time, his head hit the table with a loud thunk. He was so focused on his hands that he didn't notice Sasuke scowling at Jiraiya or the protective look in his teammate's eye as he looked at Naruto again before picking up his kunai again. The next day went pretty much the same way as the first. It was chaos. Sakura was taking care of the hurt team. Kakashi and Sasuke were spying on Gato. Jiraiya was doing who knows what, and Naruto was reading everything he could get his hands on about Fuinjutsu and desperately trying to figure out Jiraiya's puzzle. At about noon, Naruto had the great thought that the books Jiraiya had given him were all codes. Because a man who was known to be one of the world's leading experts on the subject didn't need what were basically easy to understand books. 2 hours of trying to figure it out led him to believe that it wasn't really codes but rather a seal-based genjutsu, like the ones he had on his own research scrolls. That wasted another hour of his time before he gave up. He even thought about taking some of the scrolls Jiraiya was carrying, but decided it was too dangerous. Jiraiya spent a lot of time behind the red line. A man who did that would have to be really good or he'd get ripped off 10 times over. Because of all the bad luck that day, Naruto would have been long gone by the time Kakashi and Sasuke got back to Tazuna's house. Even though it might have been weak of him, Naruto had long since decided that staying alive was the most important thing. He also wasn't sure if he could handle Sasuke ignoring him again or Kakashi ignoring him without a second thought. Things between them were already unstable, and he wasn't sure if he had a place with them anymore. Not when he was doing so badly on Jiraiya's test. He chose a nice spot on the roof to hide and lie down while watching the stars come out. He was determined to think things through and decide what he should do. Kakashi popped up to the roof and asked, Naruto? He jumped in surprise. He didn't think Kakashi would find him while he was hiding. He didn't like it, but he couldn't help but feel a little better that Kakashi had taken the time to look for him. Kakashi turned his head to the side and thought about why the boy looked so upset. As he thought about it, he didn't really look upset. More like he was trying to hide how upset he was. Along with that, he had been hiding more than just how he was feeling by sneaking up to the roof. It didn't matter how hard a genin tried to hide when Kakashi wanted to check on him. It didn't matter if Naruto was trying to hide because Kakashi had been tracking better shinobi than the boy for longer than he had been alive. The chakra signature was faint. He was sitting on the edge of the roof with one leg hanging off the side and the other bent and tucked close to his chest. Kakashi sat down next to him and watched as the boy leaned his head on his knee and seemed to pull in on himself. With the question, yo, Kakashi tried to figure out what was going through the boy's mind. So, anything you want to talk about? Naruto said, because he was afraid of being thrown out and didn't want to show where his soft spots were. It happened too many times for him to be willing to give up that easily. People had found them just to hurt him. He had a small hope that Kakashi's search for him meant he wasn't being too angry. Kakashi might not have meant to throw him away. He might not have cared about Naruto's family or where he was from. When Kakashi looked at what was going on, he cocked his head to the side. Then he saw two people running quickly toward them and became very alert. He called out, Tsunade-sama, Shizune-san, because he knew who they were. They must be our medics, he said in a softer voice. Naruto, I'm going to assign you to Jiraiya-sama. You'll be reporting to him until further notice. As Kakashi jumped off the roof, he missed the flinch that came after what he said. Naruto took a few deep breaths and made up his mind that the tears he could feel in his eyes would not fall. Naruto said in a whisper, that's it, I was right, then. Even as he stared after Kakashi in shock, he still couldn't believe it. He could barely breathe even though his chest was hurting so badly. Kakashi doesn't want me anymore. They don't want me anymore. That's just it. It's over, and that's just it. He got mad and hit the roof with his palm. He should have known not to have hope. To believe that any of them ever really wanted him. No one ever thought he was valuable, so why would they now that he had a stupid metal thing on his head? Fuck it. I should have fucking known better. Fuck me. He then took it all in, determined to get Jiraiya to take him on, and went inside with Kakashi and the women. Tsunade asked, what the hell have you brats gotten yourselves into? As she looked at the genin team they'd come to save, who were badly hurt and mostly unconscious. Poison has gotten deeply embedded into his organs, Tsunade-sama, said Shizune. I don't know if I'll be able to get it. She bit her lip and said, I put him in stasis, or I tried to. Did I make it worse? No, in fact, you probably saved his life. If it had gotten much worse, I don't know that even Tsunade-sama could have saved him. After taking a deep breath to calm herself, Tsunade used her medical chakra to connect with Shizune and let her use her as a guide. There were many ways in which medical ninjutsu was very different from ninjutsu, but one of the most important differences was that it encouraged group work and was even designed that way. Sakura, if you're serious about becoming my apprentice, join into the meld now, Tsunade said. When Sakura was startled, she hesitated and then slowly stretched her chakra. Tsunade caught it and added it to the mix. He then took the poison out of the Junin's organs. It felt like Tsunade was pulling Sakura's chakra to do it. Of course, she had read about it. One of the most common things for the most experienced medic nin to lead the healing while using the lesser nin's chakra in the meld. This gave the more experienced nin the most chakra to work with and gave the lesser nins a front row seat to see how healing worked. But she had not planned to do something like this so soon in her training, and especially not with the famous Senju Tsunade. She healed the first genin and then the junin. In the middle of the meld, Tsunade felt Sakura pass out from chakra exhaustion. She wrote down that she would teach the girl how to stay in the meld without giving up her chakra so that she could keep seeing the healing. They worked quickly with Shizune to finish the last 2 genin. She then turned to Kakashi. She asked, "What's going on here? I thought you were taking your brats and going after that bum Jiraiya." Jiraiya walked in and asked, "Did I hear my name, Tsunade-heim?" He asked with wide eyes. "What in the world are you doing here?" Tsunade just shrugged. "I was talking to the old man, and he mentioned the blonde brat was in a bind, so we came," she added. Jiraiya asked, "The blonde? You mean Naruto?" Tsunade said in agreement. "We met during a poker tournament. They mentioned they were going after you with the same message from the old man. Are you going back, too?" "Wait, you're actually going back to Konoha?" Jiraiya asked in shock. He slapped his face twice quickly to wake up, but the scene in front of him didn't change. "After all this time?" She said, "I'm opening a medical school." Jiraiya looked at Naruto, who was making a silly face. "Hey, Bon," he smiled. By ignoring his antics, she hoped that he would stop calling her that stupid name. All she did was sigh. Jiraiya got choked. "So are you lot going to fill me in or what?" she asked me. Naruto told Jiraiya the next morning, his heart still hurting. "Kakashi told me to report to you until further notice." He was shocked at how badly his team's rejection hurt him. He thought he was used to these kinds of things a long time ago. He was glad that Tsunade and Shizune were there, even if it was only for the night. For a while, their presence took his mind off of Team 7. But they left early in the morning with the patients, leaving him with no one to help him take care of the injured team. "Good," Jiraiya said, motioning for him to sit down. Kakashi's team is going to concentrate on protecting the workers as they build the bridge while Kakashi tracks Gato down. Naruto wanted to say that he was on Kakashi's side, but he knew it wouldn't help, and really, he wasn't anymore. "So what do you want from me?" Jiraiya asked in a rude way, other than that seal structure. Though he cursed to himself, Naruto only gave Jiraiya a nod. He knew Jiraiya still wanted that damn seal structure. The jerk didn't need to be reminded of that. "Are you sure? If you need more time to work out the Fuinjutsu assignment, I'm sure I can pull one of your teammates to cover it," Jiraiya said. Naruto quickly said, No, I'll be fine," and waved off his idea. "I can do both." "Okay, if you're sure you're up for another task, I can give it to you," Jiraiya said as he finished his tea and got up from the table. "We'll be prepping Wade for Gato's replacement. The daimyo is sending a few of his trade advisors and the representatives from a few of his shipping companies shortly." Drawing his attention away from Fuinjutsu and back to Jiraiya, Naruto cocked his head to the side. "What do you mean, prepping Wave? Have you seen the people here? They've been so cowed by Gato and his men, I don't think they can fathom that he might be gone someday. And once he is gone, sometimes places go a little crazy when the dictator abruptly leaves power. We don't want Wave to go crazy and try to fight off Fire's influence. We especially don't want them to do it by suddenly remembering they can fight. Eventually, they'd realize that Fire can help make their lives better, but that could take some time. So we'll just be helping that process speed along, so to speak." "You don't mean helping along like I helped Tsunade along in returning to Konoha, right?" he asked doubtfully, "because that'll be, well, really expensive." Jiraiya looked around in shock and asked, "What? You mean bribe them? Wait, you were serious before? You mean you actually bribed Tsunade to get her back to Konoha?" "Of course not," Naruto poked fun at him. "That never would have worked. I had to buy off her debtors and blackmail her to go back to Konoha." He spoke in a dazed way. "You bought her silence, you really blackmailed her." Naruto said, "Well, technically, she lost a bet. The blackmail was just to make sure she actually followed through on her end of the bet." All Jiraiya did was shake his head. "How in the world did a kid manage to find her debtors in the first place?" he asked me. He froze for a moment and then decided that this time he would risk everything. If Jiraiya was going to throw him away when he learned where he came from, then so be it. He didn't want to go through what he did with Team 7 again. "I'm a gutter rat, Jiraiya," Naruto told it straight out. "A child of the red light district. An Akasenko. I grew up with thieves and murderers and whores in Konman. And the Yakuza. Finding the people who held Tsunade's dead wasn't the problem. Making sure they'd leave me alone after I got what I wanted from them was." He looked at Jiraiya for a while, as if he didn't know what to think of him. Naruto said with a casual shrug that didn't show how tense and nervous he was. "Since Kakashi's handing me off to you after this mission is over, I thought I'd put it out there. That way, I can start looking for a new sensei right away if you're going to drop me because of it. I didn't want to find out when I was just getting used to you." He snapped his lips shut, not sure why the last bit came out and hoping it didn't let too much slip. "Where you're from doesn't bother me, kid," Jiraiya finally said after a long time. Naruto wondered if he wasn't trying to figure out how to kick him out of the mission in the Shinobi Corps right then. Naruto let his shoulders fall back in happiness. He said, "Thank you," slightly low. Jiraiya said, "Yes. Now let's talk about what we're going to do about Gato. Here's what I'm thinking." He sat next to the older man with his own rod and pole leaning against the bar and a hinge to make himself fit right in. No, he said excitedly to the other fisherman. "I hear this guy wants to get rid of all those thugs and get back to having a real trading company come through here. He ain't in shipping, but he's a trader by nature and has himself a lot of connections in the mainland. If we're lucky, maybe he knows folks in the fire court. That would mean a hell of a lot more trading through here." The fisherman asked, "Is it so? Well, best of luck to him, then." A new guy who had just joined said, "Yeah, maybe we'll be able to get some jobs." Naruto said with a nod. "Can only hope, right?" he asked as he slammed his glass back down on the weak, plain wood table and stood up, making sure to wobble. "Well, best get going then. Think I've had enough." As he snuck out of the bar, the men at the table laughed and made fun of him a bit. He ducked into an alley, changed the hinge to a fisherman that looked different, and then told a slightly different story in another bar. Naruto was happy with how the Whisper campaign was going so far. In just a few days, he had started spreading rumors among the locals. They were already talking about everything from an enemy taking over Gato Corps to Gato committing suicide soon. As he kept up his act as a fisherman, he thought, a few more days, and the rumors will really come true. He didn't believe Jiraiya when he told him about this strategy because he didn't know how useful it could be. After seeing Jiraiya pretend to be two of Gato's goons, complaining to each other about the Cloud Shinobi going after Gato, and seeing how quickly the rumors spread, Naruto was sure. And then spread a few dozen more rumors, all of which had one thing in common. Gato was going to die. The occasional praise of fire and Konoha did make its way in, but it couldn't be for everyone. That's what Jiraiya said, at least. Although he didn't think the locals would figure out their trick, they didn't seem smart enough. Jiraiya had warned them that putting off easy tasks would turn into a bad habit, and bad habits killed good shinobi most of the time. Naruto wasn't sure if he was a good shinobi yet, but he was determined not to be a dead one, so he did what Jiraiya told him to do and only talked about fire or Konoha every third time he talked to someone. After making a few onigiri bunshin and using a henge to make them all look like Gato's goons, he went into another bar. This task was really fun for him. He also had a good reason to spend as little time as possible in the house while Kakashi and his team were there, which was an added bonus. It was making him uncomfortable that he was being excluded, especially since Sasuke and Sakura were supposed to watch over the bridge without him during the day and help Kakashi at night. That's why he tried to avoid being there as much as possible. He could be absent whenever he liked because he had a good reason. He was in charge of the Whisper campaign in the village. As he waited for the Fire Daimyo's people to arrive, he either hid himself to work on the stupid seal structure, which he still wasn't sure how to finish, which was making him more worried and stressed than he was willing to admit to himself. Or he hid himself with Jiraiya to think of other ways to screw Gato over. It was really fun, that part. It didn't matter how unsettling it was that Sasuke found all of his hiding places and sat with him to watch him without saying a word. He would have said that Sasuke had picked up the stalker habits of his fangirls if he didn't know any better. What made things worse was that his teammate didn't trust him enough to leave someone to watch him. After 3 bars, Naruto looked at the sun and decided it was safe to make his way back. It's likely that Kakashi and the others had dinner and were about to leave. They had a plan that included more than just the Whisper campaign, after all. Jiraiya was happy that the operation was going very well. Actually, it went better than he thought it would because Naruto helped him get ready for the Daimyo's people earlier. But even though Naruto's skills were very useful, Jiraiya couldn't help but be worried that a 12-year-old had them at all, let alone to the level of skill Naruto had. In the end, not even shinobi kids knew how to fake papers, steal money, or threaten important people right out of the academy. What Jiraiya really had to teach him was how to do the Whisper campaign. He didn't even have to do much because the boys seemed to be good at it. He knew that many of those skills came from calling himself a Gutter rat. But that made Jiraiya even more worried, because he knew Naruto shouldn't have been like that. It was very upsetting to him that he seemed to have grown up in a rough neighborhood. It was easy for him to remember how Naruto had behaved at the brothel in Haifu. When he finally got out from under the lady's care, the other two brats were uncomfortable and antsy. Not Naruto, though. Naruto wasn't doing that. He was playing that crazy card game he'd seen the house girls play a lot. He was playing it like he'd been doing it for years, because Naruto called the girls Nichan, and the brothel's mistress, mother, and because he knew to give the mistress money to make her happy instead of helping Jiraiya get away. Jiraiya thought Naruto spent a lot of time in Konohazakasen as a child. That wasn't just another rough neighborhood, and no one would want their child to be wandering around there by themselves without being watched or safe. He had way too many questions about it all, and Jiraiya planned to ask Sarutobi a lot of questions about it when he got back to Konoha. However, Jiraiya couldn't put too much thought into it at the moment. Gato had to be gotten rid of, and Naruto had to explain why he thought he was going to turn Gato into an apprentice. Even more so since Kakashi was so strongly against the idea. Kakashi asked as he got ready to go out for the night, "Is Naruto out again tonight?" The kid's good. He is, Kakashi said with a sigh. I was hoping to catch him before I took the others out again. I wanted to see how he's doing. Have you talked to him about the dangers of seals yet? You know, we don't just sit around all day doing nothing, Jiraiya said in a mild voice. Kakashi said, no, I know. When the door opened, they both looked up to see Naruto walk in. Jiraiya thought it was strange that he stopped when he saw Kakashi. When Jiraiya asked, well, Naruto seemed to instantly become himself again. A few fishermen, then a lot of bars, Naruto answered. They seem to be the only business left on the island. But I found company that lent me a sympathetic ear in all of them. Good, Jiraiya replied. What about the seal structure? Naruto turned his head away and said, it's coming. Oh, do you want me to look over what you've come up with so far? Jiraiya asked, making sure to sound supportive even though he was really laughing. Naruto argued, no, that's fine. I can work it out. Really? But, well. When Jiraiya saw Naruto spit it out, he raised an eyebrow and waved his hand. Naruto said with slouched shoulders, maybe it would help if I knew more about how the bridge was being built. There are too many parts to it, and I don't know what's really important and what's, not. So, do you think I can go with them tomorrow? To work on the bridge, I mean? Fine, Jiraiya said with a shrug. This is the most important part of the mission, So make sure you impress me, genius. Naruto slouched even more, and Jiraiya tried hard not to smile. Naruto said, all right. I'll just go work on it some more. His steps were the very picture of sadness as he walked away. Jiraiya laughed as the door shut behind him. Kakashi was clearly interested and asked, what was that all about? Jiraiya didn't answer, so he said, I was surprised to hear you had changed your mind about giving Naruto to me as an apprentice. Kakashi looked right at him with his eyes. Kakashi said, I haven't. Oh. Well, you may want to clarify that with the brat, because he sure thinks that's what's happening. Naruto carefully controlled his every move as he walked through the small house. He was afraid that if he didn't, he'd break something, and not stopping. He was making the mission worse. His chance to get a new teacher was going away. Kakashi hadn't even bothered to look at him once. Things were going wrong in his life, and he didn't know how to fix them. Naruto chose not to destroy Tsunami's house, so he left. If it meant staying away from his whole team for the rest of the night, he was okay with going hungry. He had planned to eat dinner before going back out. After all, he wasn't like he hadn't done that before. When he walked outside and saw Sasuke and Sakura waiting for Kakashi, he cursed himself. Naruto turned around and tried to sneak back into the house, but Sasuke and Sakura were in the way. Sakura stepped in front of the door so he couldn't go through without moving her. What's wrong with you? She asked. He said, look, let's just leave it. We both have things we need to do tonight. Sasuke said, I haven't seen you in days. He kicked a piece of dirt and said, yeah. Well, it's for the best. She wasn't following him around like his other ex-teammate did to make sure he didn't steal anything, at least. Sasuke yelled, what the hell, Naruto? That was more than what he had said to him in the last 2 days put together. Naruto just gave him that look that said, don't move. Sasuke yelled, what? When Naruto couldn't hold it in any longer, he said, you guys are such assholes. His head snapped back when Sasuke's fist hit him in the jaw with so much force. Naruto rubbed at it and spat out blood out of his mouth. Fuck you, he said. Sasuke, Sakura yelled, putting the green medical chakra-covered hand on Naruto's jaw. Here, let me. He hit her hand away with his slap. She stared at him with her mouth open in shock and her eyebrows drawn together in doubt. Look, I get it, okay. You guys are done with me. You don't have to make believe anymore that you ever actually wanted me around. You've made it clear you don't want me, and you don't trust me, so fine. Same goes. Kakashi's found me a new sensei, which I suppose is more than I should have hoped for. So you guys can go fuck off and leave the dirty little thief to his gutter, Naruto said harshly, letting his anger at their betrayal rage. I'm sure you wish I'd never sullied your presence in the first place, but you won't have to worry about that much longer. He then disappeared, leaving Sakura and Sasuke to stare after him. After that, Kakashi showed up, and was clearly angry and frustrated. With how careless he usually is and how serious he is most of the time, that was more than enough to throw Sasuke and Sakura even more off. Kakashi told him, for now, forget about it. This is one of the most difficult yet most important things you'll learn as ninja. The mission comes first, and personal problems must be put aside until you're through. We will deal with this when the mission is over. And we will deal with it. Now let's go. After that, Kakashi tried his best to do what he had said. There was no way he could go after him. Naruto finally calmed down in the morning and went back to Tsunami's house. Then he started making experimental seals right away as Jiraiya had told him to. And messing them up completely. He muttered, damn it, as the third one went off. He was getting more and more angry at himself. Due to the fact that Jiraiya would not want to teach him if he started messing up seal spreads. He would be back where he started, alone, with no teachers, friends, or anyone else. Kakashi would no longer want him. Saying, damn it, Naruto slammed his fist into the ground. He lit the pieces of the seal paper on fire with joy. He didn't know why the thought of being alone again was making him feel so bad. He knew how to do it again because he had done it before. He just decided he didn't want to. His team and him had grown close, and the thought of it being taken away made him sad. Naruto had to push himself to be still. It was over, and wishing things were different wouldn't change them. In any case, the friendship between them had to be made up. They should have accepted where he came from if they cared about him as much as he cared about them. As another seal caught fire, he sighed and rubbed his eyes in anger. This time by accident. He muttered, fuck, and threw away the mess. He then got a new sheet of paper to start over. He knew his team. No, he told himself, Kakashi's team, was coming back when he heard people outside the house. He would also have to spend the day with Sakura and Sasuke to see how the bridge was built. That he had to do if he wanted to figure out what to do about the seal issue. He didn't think the day would go well after the way he left things last night. Kakashi didn't know what went wrong. The team they left behind was one of the tightest he had seen in a very long time. Now, less than 2 months later, they were so broken it was hard to tell what they were. Of course, the fact that one of them was stuck inside working with Jiraiya didn't help. He was glad that the man was taking the time to help Naruto with his sealing, but Naruto being away from the team so often was annoying. It wasn't his idea to do it, but it was still annoying. It also messed up his tentative plan to tie his kids up and lock them in a room until they figured things out. He was shocked when Naruto walked into Tsunami's house while they were having breakfast. Naruto, you're back, Sakura said with a happy tone in her voice. He looked at none of them and said, I need to go to the bridge with you today. Jiraiya said it was alright. I'll meet you out front when you leave. Kakashi made a face. Sit and have breakfast with us. Naruto laughed and turned around to go back to the door. I have things to do. Right now, that means eating dinner with your team, Kakashi said in a way that made it impossible to argue. When Naruto's back slowly straightened, he knew he had made his point. Naruto turned around and asked, Team, he asked in a low, angry voice. And bad. Kakashi had never heard someone so young sound so angry before. You've all made it clear I'm not a member of your team. So fuck you. Sakura and Sasuke both stood up and began to yell, that's not. You're a. But Kakashi was done. Kakashi told his other 2 students, stop, sit down, and don't talk. This is an order. You, too. They sat down and looked back and forth between Kakashi and Naruto. Kakashi said, we're going to fix this right now. I don't know where you got the idea that you aren't a member of this team anymore, but you're mine. Calling it bullshit, Naruto said. You've all 3 of you made it clear you don't want me anymore, not after finding out I'm an Akasenko. So don't try to pretend otherwise. I don't give a shit that you're from the red light district, Sasuke said. I care that you never told us. You never tell us anything. Naruto replied in a rough voice, there's nothing about me that you should know. I've been a thief and a conman and a smuggler and most else you can think of, because I grew up in the Akasen with nothing and nobody, and had to fight for every fucking thing I've ever needed. And I'm not sorry for who I am or where I'm from or what I've done, because I fucking survived it and that's more than others can say. But that doesn't make any of it anything I'm proud of, or anything I wanted any of you to know. Because, fuck me, but I wanted people to actually want me around for once, and not think I'm just some shit clinging to their shoes because of where I came from. His breathing was all over the place, and when he was done, his eyes were hard and narrowed as he watched them react. Sasuke said, I told you I don't care about that. I couldn't give a flying fuck if you're the son of a whore or the fourth Hokage himself. Yeah, sure, Naruto teased. That's why as soon as you found out you started watching me to make sure I didn't touch the silver, and everyone else started ignoring me, and leaving me behind, and giving me those looks. That's why Kakashi pawned me off on Jiraiya as soon as he could. No, none of you care anything about that. Kakashi didn't understand how things could have gone so badly. When Sakura spoke for the first time, he was about to speak up. Naruto, Sakura began, but Sasuke's fist hit Naruto in the jaw, cutting her off. The spit of Naruto made Kakashi see blood. He then turned his head back and worked his jaw while keeping his eyes on Sasuke. Sasuke yelled, "You fucking asshole." He lost control of his voice and his temper. It wasn't about that. It was never about that. I care that I've told you everything I am, and that you've kept so many secrets I don't think I even know who you are. It was about you telling me you believed in me, that you believed I could accomplish my goal, and then telling me I couldn't even walk down the street without you fucking holding my hand, you jackass. Nods from Naruto. I didn't. That's exactly what you did, Sasuke harshly told her. And I wasn't watching you so you didn't steal anything. I was trying to fucking be there for you so you'd know I didn't care about the whole red light district thing, and so you'd know you could talk to me about the rest of your fucking secrets, you idiot. Naruto stood still and stared at them all with a puzzled look on his face. His jaw was slightly dropped in shock. Kakashi wasn't sure if it was time for him to step in or not, before things went badly even more and there was no way back. He thought that this might work out for the best after all. As if a needle were stuck in a wound, letting everything out in the open. After one beat, he waited for two. Naruto then started to talk. I'm not good at much, Naruto said, his voice so soft that they had to strain to hear it. My taijutsu is still screwed up from what Mizuki did, my genjutsu is even more non-existent than my chakra control, and it takes me ages to learn most ninjutsu. And you guys, you're smart. And you're good, you're gonna go on and be Junin, and then the next legends of the shinobi world. Fuinjutsu and my experience with the shady side of life are really just about all I have to offer, I know that. And I know this is just about as far as I'll ever get. If I'm lucky, I'll sneak through to Chunin, but I'm realistic about my chances for even that. She put out her hand and said, Naruto, but Naruto didn't even look up. I know you're both capable. Fuck, you're better than I am in every way you can be. But you're the only thing I've ever had that's close to a family, and I know the Akasan and everything goes on in it better than anyone would ever want to, and I wanted to keep you safe from it and out of it. And, even if you hate me for it, I'd do it again. Because yeah, either of you could take on any of the yaks or the other fuckers who live there no problem one-on-one. Even 10-on-1, even 100-on-1. But that shit shouldn't even touch you, shouldn't ever touch you. There was a pause while Sasuke and Sakura looked at him and didn't know what to say. Kakashi didn't blame them, he had no idea what to think. Naruto turned all the way around to face the door and said, I'm sorry that made you mad. I guess we won't have to worry about any of that anymore. You won't have to deal with me again after this. Jiraiya-sama is being generous enough to take me on for a while, so you'll be able to move on. For what it's worth, I'll miss you. I'll go now. I have to get that fucking seal done, and... Sasuke and Sakura both jumped on him before he could even take 3 steps toward the door. Sakura hit him on the arm with one hand while holding him so tightly that he got bruises. You don't get to say things like that and then leave, she said. Sasuke agreed, you don't get to leave at all. I'm mad, was mad, fuck, you make me crazy, but that doesn't mean you fucking run away, Dobi. Kakashi knelt down in front of the pile of them and looked Naruto straight in the eye. Mo, they're right, you know, he said. I told you, you're mine. And you'll stay mine. All of you. You, Sasuke, and Sakura, until I see you made Chunin or we die in the process. Naruto looked confused. He was clearly shocked and didn't know what was going on. Even if it was true. There was nothing Kakashi could do to speed him up. He was free to do whatever he needed to do at his own pace. Having Sakura and Sasuke hold him down physically didn't hurt either, he thought. What did Naruto finally say? I don't get it. Kakashi knew how it felt. How could you say that? You gave me to Jiraiya-sensei. But Kakashi said, I didn't do that. You did. Naruto yelled back, his voice mean, and Kakashi could see tears in his eyes. You told me I was assigned to him from now on, and you've been leaving me behind when you go with the team to do anything, and Jiraiya said you wanted him to teach me. It was making Kakashi mad, and Sasuke and Sakura were staring at him. He rubbed his eye and thought about how things could have gotten so mixed up. This is a complex mission with a lot of components to it. You're better suited than Sasuke or Sakura to the parts Jiraiya is taking the lead on, which means while they help me, you're helping Jiraiya. So yes, I have been leaving you with Jiraiya and you are reporting to him. If Sasuke or Sakura had been better suited to it, I would have had them reporting to Jiraiya instead for the duration of the mission, Kakashi said. And Jiraiya is one of the world's foremost Fuinjutsu masters. I wanted him to talk to you about sealing, because you've already passed me by and I didn't want you blowing yourself up or stagnating because of my shortcomings as a teacher. But I made it clear to him that if he tried to take you from me and make you his apprentice before you made Chunin, I'd rip his arms off and beat him unconscious with them. He looked at Naruto for a moment in shock and disbelief, and then he seemed to just collapse in on himself, becoming limp and boneless while he buried his face in Sakura's neck. Naruto was saying, I thought you didn't want me anymore, but his voice was so quiet that he almost couldn't make out the words. I thought none of you wanted me. Then Kakashi got stuck in the middle of the pile and held them all while Sasuke and Sakura wrapped their arms around Naruto, who was desperately trying to hold on. Baka, Sakura said as she ruffled Naruto's hair while crying herself. You're ours. Ours, Sasuke said, forever, ooh. Shinobi Light Kakashi did a good job. He was a true master of the sword. He really was a really great shinobi. Not many people could say they were as good as him. That's why, much to his own surprise, he wasn't calming down and comforting his kids like he had wanted to. He was instead on his way to kill a man. It was likely something he was better at and more suited to than comforting kids. He didn't know what that meant about him. He did, though. It said that he was a great shinobi. They knew that the Fire Daimyo's people weren't far away, so everything had to be ready for them when they got there, no matter how the shinobi who was supposed to do that felt. Gato had to die, both to get out of the way and to tip Wave just on the edge of chaos, giving everyone time to freak out but not enough time for anyone to come up with a solution. Then, when the men of the Fire Daimyo showed up, they could solve all the problems politely, which made Wave forever grateful. That was the plan, at least. Gato needed to die. That meant Kakashi had to go work. As he slid through Wave and got to Gato's floating fortress, he sighed and tried not to be seen. A precaution that wasn't really needed since they knew Momochi Zabuza and the other missing ninjas Gato had hired had already left. The only people left to protect him were, in an ideal world, mercenaries, but in reality they were just stupid people with guns and big heads. It was still important for him to not slack off, even on easy tasks, so he made sure no one saw him. Still, it was easy for him to sneak around inside the ship that was Gato's main office. The hired helpers didn't have any chakra and even less sense. A genjutsu that would let him walk right through them would have been so much faster, and Kakashi was eager to get back to his kids. But there was always the tiniest chance that one of the guards wouldn't be caught. He thought that chance was less than 0.001%, but his sensei's voice about bad habits killing good shinobi kept going through his mind, so he didn't try to speed things up. He flew over the side of the ship and straight to Gato's office when the coast was finally clear. There were a lot of people who wanted this man dead, and he was stupid to have an office with so many windows and one of them open. But Kakashi wasn't going to complain because someone was making his job easier. The knife wasn't a kunai. They were going for a subtle look after all. He fingered it and measured its weight one last time while he waited for Gato to get in place instead of wandering around his office. It wasn't meant to be thrown, but that didn't matter because they wanted the slightly rusty switchblade as a prop more than they wanted to know how easy it was for Kakashi to kill someone with it. In any case, Kakashi could kill a man with almost anything. I guess a tissue would work. He hadn't tried yet, of course. Mark then took a folder back to his desk, sat down, and fished something out of it. He may have been thinking about something in the file he had just retrieved. Kakashi didn't really care, but it did put him in the best position to be terminated. Then he let go of the blade and it flew straight away. It hit him right in the gut, but not quite in the heart because a direct hit would be too suspicious, or would have been if anyone in the area could still think critically after being scared or brutalized, but he remembered his sensei telling him that bad habits kill good shinobi, so he went with it. Instead, it went through his chest too high and to the right, cutting a few arteries. Even though it wasn't as clean or quick, it was close to killing him. As the heart kept beating, blood spurted out. He wasn't sure if the target's hands were shaking because of reflexes or because they were trying to hold on to the knife. Kakashi looked at it all with tired eyes that had seen it 100 times. He waited for his wound to stop bleeding so he was sure the man was dead. It wouldn't do to leave his target only to find out later that someone had saved them by some miracle. That is so embarrassing. He was also sure that the other killers would laugh at him. Once there was no more blood under the table and Kakashi's target hadn't breathed in 100 years, he skipped that now pointless security and went back to his kids. Ooh, Sasuke watched as Naruto seemed to be everywhere at once as he flew around the bridge. He didn't even need shadow clones to help him. Of course, he should have been paying attention to the client and keeping an eye on the area around them to make sure no one was sneaking up on them to kill the client at the last minute. He did try, really. They had been watching the bridge builder the whole time, but there had been no sign of a threat. Naruto, with his red-rimmed eyes, was much more interesting to look at than the empty line of trees behind him. Sasuke wouldn't admit that his eyes might match. But if he had to, he would rather say that than say that he thought Sakura's red eyes looked terrible with her red dress and pink hair. The first one would, in the end, hurt his pride. It would hurt Sakura's head. If she used medical jutsu on him, she might, accidentally, burn off his eyebrows. Once more, when he saw Naruto looking back at him, he knew that someone had noticed how careless he was. He quickly turned his attention back to the line of trees. He knew Naruto was still hiding things. In the end, though, Naruto being shy was better than not having him at all. He only had to wait. What if there was no Naruto at all? That possibility was too close to being true for comfort. Naruto turned his attention back to his teammate, who was much closer than he had been before the soft pops and puffs of making clones. Naruto had always been surprisingly good at sneaking up on people, though. The clones started to swarm the bridge and paint seals on every surface they could find. Some splashes told Sasuke that this included places that were hidden by the channel. Naruto's plan to ask everyone on the bridge everything that came to his mind at the same time went on. He saw that even more clones were working on real building. He smiled as he watched one Naruto fall face first into freshly poured concrete, flailing his arms and legs to try to get out. Another Naruto then hit him with a hoe and smoothed out the Naruto-shaped hole in the concrete. Sasuke was pretty sure that the Naruto who sat down next to him was the real one. But Naruto's clones had been known to play around when they were bored. Really, he did what he did because it was good for their mission. There was a long pause in work when Naruto yelled, "Motherfucker." Everyone turned to look at them. Naruto scratched his head and asked, "What was that for?" Sasuke's fist had helped move the mission along more quickly. He shrugged and said, "Making sure you're not a clone." Naruto said in a low voice, "That excuse is getting old so fast." Sakura teased him while sitting next to him and putting her feet off the edge of the bridge. "Ah, then we'll have to find another way to show you we care." Sasuke laughed. "I thought you were working on a seal structure for Jiraiya-sama," Sasuke said, taking the conversation away from any talk of showing feelings. Naruto just moaned and sat down, putting his arm over his eyes. In return, Sakura poked him. Naruto begged, "Can't you see I'm in pain here?" "Really?" Sakura asked with a lot more happiness than was necessary. Sasuke moved away and asked, "What hurts?" "I'm sure I can fix it." It was like his eyebrows had just grown in, and he was sure Naruto would find a way out of this, and then she'd turn on him. Naruto peered out from under Sasuke's arm and said, Not that kind of agony, Sakura." Sasuke noticed that he had kept his arm there to protect his eyebrows. He agreed by nodding, "You're smart." As the green chakra Sakura had collected in her hand faded away, she let out a disappointed, "Oh." Sasuke let out a happy sigh. Sakura said, "Well, if it's not medical, then you just have to talk about it." "Right, Sasuke?" Sasuke asked. He just blinked back, not wanting to say no. Because, if Sasuke had his way, he would have just grunted at Naruto to let him know he was there and then waited for him to finish thinking. With the backup plan of kicking him off the bridge if he became too annoying. Seeing him jump 50 feet into rough water would definitely make at least one of them feel better. She told herself, "Right," and she agreed with him. "So spill it." He grabbed her wrist and pulled, twisting enough to throw all three of them to the ground when she poked him in the ribs again. Sasuke made sure that Naruto's kidneys were hit by his knee and that he didn't even come close to pulling Sakura's hair. When her hair was pulled, she got mean. They didn't fight anymore after horseback riding for so long that they were out of breath. They then laid down in a tangled heap and breathed out. Naruto said, "So, I'm not a genius," as if he were confessing a terrible sin. "This is news," Sasuke asked. "Sasuke, be nice," Sakura told him. Naruto just laughed out loud. "It's just, with everything Kaka-sensei said about my seals, I thought maybe I really was good." Naruto breathed out. Sasuke told him, "Don't be a fool. You're a prodigy and you know it." "But I'm not," Naruto insisted. Jiraiya gave me this assignment, right? And he keeps telling me that if I'm really that good, I could do it, but I can't. He sounded so upset about that last part that Sasuke put Jiraiya on his list of people to kill. He didn't know that Jiraiya had killed Naruto's whole family and then used a genjutsu on him to make him relive it. Not the list, but Jiraiya was on the list, which was one level below the list. On that list were the child welfare worker who took a bribe to put Sasuke with a family he didn't like, the patriarch who paid the bribe, and the worker who approved plans to tear down the Uchiha district without his permission. Some of them are. Sakura asked, well, what does that Jiraiya bum know anyway? She stopped talking when Naruto pressed his face into her stomach to hide his laughter. He's just a drunk jerk who didn't even bother to help you, so how dare he judge you? And besides, our sensei knows what he's talking about. If he says you're brilliant, you are brilliant. And if that Jiraiya doesn't agree, then obviously there's something wrong with him. Sakura yelled at him, hey, this isn't funny. This is all seriousness here, Naruto. Naruto. She hit him on the shoulder to stop laughing. She did it with a smile, though. Ooh, Naruto chose that night to tell Jiraiya what he had to say. Since the bridge was almost done, there was no point in putting it off any longer. That is, not now that he knew he had failed completely and totally. He decided to wait until dinner was over so that Kakashi, Sasuke, and especially Sakura would all leave for somewhere, anywhere, so that Jiraiya could scold him alone. Because it would be embarrassing enough without them there. He did this because he thought Sakura might try to kill Jiraiya and Sasuke might not stop her. Jiraiya didn't know any of this, so he ruined Naruto's carefully thought out fantasy of how everything would go. So tell me, genius, Jiraiya asked as he poured himself a drink in Tsunami's dining room while lying on 2 chairs. Are you ready to apply the seals to the bridge yet? Naruto bit his lip. It wasn't nearly as important to get Jiraiya's okay as it used to be. He knew he still had his team, so he didn't want to do it. He still wanted it, though, and thought he was good enough to deserve it. Of course, failing was already painful enough without that extra disappointment. I've already applied modified durability seals that should make the bridge last at least 10 times longer than it would have otherwise, given normal wear and tear. He waved his sake saucer away and said, I don't care about that. What about protecting it from assaults? You're supposed to be the greatest thing since the ink stick. Where's my seal structure? Naruto stopped for a moment to think about what to say. It hurt to fail even though he had other people to lean on. He was so hurt that he didn't notice when Kakashi got up and put down his sake saucer to give Jiraiya a mean look. He said, I can't do it. I tried to come up with something that would make it indestructible, that would keep it safe from any possible attack. But there were too many ways you can destroy a bridge. I was able to come up with something that would work against general explosives and lightning-based attacks and fires, but then what the hell are you supposed to do to keep a bridge standing if someone summons a wave big enough to knock the whole thing down? Or what if someone made the seabed soft enough to sink the whole damn thing? Naruto was angry and shook his head. Kakashi looked at Jiraiya with a dangerously narrowed eye. Off the top of his head, he could think of a dozen more ways to destroy the bridge. Naruto said, it's impossible, and then he paused. Also, it wasn't fair to ask in the first place. He crossed his arms in front of him and nodded as if to say, so there. Kakashi agreed. Even more so since Jiraiya hadn't done anything with the project, the request was completely unreasonable. Jiraiya said, it's not unreasonable. You just need to work harder at it. If you really were a genius, you could figure it out. The hands of Kakashi twitched as he geared up to defend his pupil. They were only stopped by the fact that shinobi were often asked to do things that weren't reasonable. This could teach them a lesson. But that didn't mean he wasn't going to tell Jiraiya what he really thought about everything when they were alone. Naruto said, I'm telling you it can't be done. There are so many factors involved it's impossible. Are you sure? Jiraiya asked with a raised eyebrow while drinking at his sake. Naruto gave a firm nod once and then turned his attention away. Yes, call me a failure or whatever, but this can't be done. Jiraiya gave a small nod and put his saucer down with a light click, saying, good. He then turned his attention back to Jiraiya. What? Similar thoughts were going through Kakashi's mind quickly, and he was coming to his own conclusions. Jiraiya said, I'm glad you made that choice. You came up with the right answer to the problem I gave you. Really? Naruto asked. What the fuck? Jiraiya's words seemed to have no effect on either Sakura or Sasuke. You're good, kid. I knew that as soon as I saw that message tube you came up with. When you showed me the rest you've been working on, well, you've got talent, Jiraiya said. Enough you'll likely be able to do more with seals than anyone's ever thought possible. This is why you set me up to fail in some way. Naruto asked. I set you up to realize that not everything can be done with seals, no matter how good you are, Jiraiya said. Kakashi corrected himself in his mind. No, you set him up for a good, hard mind fuck. He yelled, you, Arg. Do you have any idea how many hours I spent busting my ass trying to figure that shit out? Jiraiya smiled and said, oh, it's likely that you'll remember the lesson. Naruto thought he was mad at him at that moment. You really are a bastard. He smiled and poured himself another cup of tea. And just think, I'll be following you all the way back to Konoha. If you're lucky, I may even teach you a thing or two. After giving him a scared look, Naruto hit his head on the table. Jiraiya just smiled even bigger.
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, we weeb offline.